I was seeing your LinkedIn profile and you mentioned there that you got 100 percentile in CAT. How can someone be 100 percentile? How is life growing up as like one of a pair of twins?
कि लाइफ मतलब बहुत ज्यादा बैंगलोर के क्लोज है लाइक द वेदर इज वेरी मच लाइक बैंगलोर वो थोड़ी ठंडी ठंडी हवा चलती रहती है पूरे दिन आई वाज एक्चुअली born in Saudi Arabia. My parents were both are doctors. Like my dad is a plastic surgeon, my mother is a gynecologist. Like I was someone to childhood, I used to aspire for very great things.
So what were some of the startups that came out of IIT Roorkee during those years?
But you went for like an MBA जो मतलब सबसे boring और सबसे unimaginative career है. Why?
Then 12th I appeared for JEE, got a good rank and eventually joined IIT Roorkee. Like India में startup culture बहुत बड़ा हो गया है. But still, people don't end up joining these startups because like they have to like pay off these huge loans.
ये when we hear these headlines कि 1 crore salary मिली है IIM को, वो क्या होता है? Fake?
मुझे जो अच्छा लग रहा था वो मैंने किया. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि I'll be on road, right? Like मैं कुछ अगर अच्छा तो figure out कर लूंगा.
Welcome everyone. So today we have one of our juniors, Luv Saxena, on the show. Luv is a graduate of IIM Bangalore, 2019 batch, and before that he did his BTech from IIT Roorkee. So he's a computer engineer and then worked in JP Morgan. Went to IIM Bangalore, then worked in JP Morgan, and now he is working for an music startup, and he's also had a stint at a food delivery company in India. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation, uh, a hard-hitting conversation. We plan to keep the pace strong and discuss some important topics and get to know him in the next hour. Love, before we get started, tell us about you. Where did you grow up? How was family like? Middle class, upper middle class? How was getting into IIT Roorkee like?
Sure, Vix. So I was brought like I'm born and brought up. I was actually born in Saudi Arabia, so that's where my parents were. Like both are doctors. Like my dad is a plastic surgeon, my mother is a gynecologist. So like they were working in Saudi Arabia like and they were on a 5-6 year stint there. So me and my brother, so we are actually twins. Like that's how I get my name, Love and Kush. So we both were born there, and then immediately like a couple of years into that whole journey, right? Like we shifted to Delhi, and that's where like my whole childhood kind of was. So like I initially started off in a very normal school. Our life now, so when they were shifted from Saudi Arabia to Delhi, it was a very उस वक्त मतलब एक तो they were not a lot of economic reforms that were done in India, right? So life was middle classy. Like we set up a house in East Delhi in Vivek Vihar, and that's where it initially started. I joined a school somewhere near there, but then eventually we kind of realized that the life like it has to. My dad actually had that inkling. Like he was a very big believer of brands, and like he really wanted us to have a very wholesome education experience, right? So he got us admitted into this school called Modern Barakhamba. We joined like when I was in seventh class, and it was a very big cultural, very big mindset shift for me because I saw people like coming from various like very different walks of life, like families who had achieved quite a lot initially, uh, and when we interacted with them, I kind of understood that there's a huge world out there, right? And like I was someone, जो childhood से ना, I used to aspire for very great things because like both my parents, right, they are someone who like people who have taken competitive exams in their respective journeys. My dad is like he was an AIR 34 during his time, like in his erstwhile NEET. He admitted in AIMS and then but eventually ended up joining Maulana Azad for his post grad. And my mother was also like one of the rank holders in NEET. So we both kind of aspired to be like me and my brother. We kind of aspired to actually go and like try for some like aspiring degrees, right? But medical was not a something that we kind of initially thought that we would do because both of us, like my parents were kind of believers that like if you really want to make a difference, right, then probably medical is a field where you're kind of limited to your day to day. Like there are some things that you can do, but like eventually if you want to make a huge difference out there, then probably go for some other degree like engineering or
Love, that is very
later on.
surprising to
So
me because, and based on the few samples that I have, my friends, as I was growing up, जिसका बाप डॉक्टर्स में बहुत होता है, यूजुअली डॉक्टर डॉक्टर के साथ ही शादी करते हैं. That is what I've
correct,
seen. Usually बोल रहा, I mean there are a few cases, but look at your mom and
right,
dad, both
right,
doctors, ठीक है. और उन दोनों डॉक्टर है तो 100% बच्चा बच्ची डॉक्टर ही बनेंगे. डेंटिस्ट है तो बच्चा बच्ची डेंटिस्ट ही बनेंगे. ये मैंने 90% रूल है. So you're in that exception
right,
10% bracket.
right.
Is your
Yeah,
brother
no, in
also
fact, yeah, no, in fact, but
non-medical or is he?
he's a non-medical. Just like me, वो उसने engineering किया, then he did his MBA from FMS. तो वो mix starting से ही था. मतलब actually ना मैं so मतलब मेरा और मेरा भाई ना, we both are like people who think about a long term things quite a lot. तो जैसे मतलब we need something, जैसे कि let's say if we create something today and we see that to like if that thing grows into a very big like venture or very big something impactful in the future ना, तो उससे हमें बहुत satisfaction मिलता है. And me and my brother, we kind of share the same DNA in that sense. तो लेकिन my parents, right, they are very, वो मतलब बहुत थोड़ा short term सोचते हैं. Like they are very happy, satisfied doing these surgeries on a daily basis. तो उनने इनफैक्ट हमें लाइक बिकॉज दे न्यू हाउ वी वर लाइक काइंड ऑफ थिंकिंग, राइट, सो उनने काफी encourage किया कि मेडिकल लाइक go and explore something outside medical because you might be more satisfied that way. If you like eventually, because उस वक्त actually startups भी काफी आ गए थे इंडिया में. We were seeing rise of Flipkart, like we were seeing rise of some very big startups globally. तो and उसी से inspire होके ना, my parents were also like kind of discussing this, that eventually I think like this is where you might find more joy and satisfaction.
So
So
when was this?
we
This was around when you started your engineering, must be around 2010, 11 when you were
correct.
making this
So
call.
like
But your call would have been
2000
made in 9th, 10th, right? कि medical लेना है या non
exactly
bio लेना है.
2009 में हो गया था. तो like 2009 was when I was in 9th class और तभी डिसाइड करा इनफैक्ट. भाई उससे पहले था वो मेडिकल चल रहा था. like I wouldn't lie, we were like initially kind of contemplating that हम मेडिकल चले जाएंगे, we'll be doctors and earn money and like live a good life. But then उसके आसपास ना was when the inkling kind of dawned that maybe that is not for us. और 9th में फिर मेरा और मेरे भाई ने दोनों ने we selected non-medical. We did not take biology that time. And then फिर हमने बस IIT प्रिपरेशन शुरू करा. वो 9-10 में आई वाज इन दिल्ली, लाइक आई जॉइंड द लोकल इंस्टीट्यूट देयर. वीकेंड्स वहाँ पे जाया करते थे, वी यूज्ड टू स्टडी. और वो 11th 12th में लाइक देन 12th में आई अपीयर्ड फॉर जेई, got a good rank and eventually joined IIT Roorkee.
Okay, okay. So JEE preparation
Right.
तुमने और भाई ने both of you did together?
Together करना था मिक्स, बट लाइक my brother ना, वो मतलब बहुत पढ़ाकू नहीं है. Like he was someone who never actually, he didn't pick up the book in the whole 11th to 12th. Last 3 months उसने पढ़ाई करा. तो होना तो साथ चाहिए था, but like it was more he didn't used to study a lot, but I was someone who was like sincere. My at least weekends पे I used to put in hours, पढ़ाई करता था. And उसमें मतलब एक चीज बहुत हेल्प किया कि like since वो हमें ना बहुत ज्यादा ऐसा कुछ बहुत प्रेशर नहीं था. ऐसे मतलब my parents never used to say कि IIT करना है. तो वो like it was more born out of my own sort of desire to do it. तो उससे ना फिर मोटिवेशन काफी ज्यादा मिल जाता है. like वो internally motivated था. And I used to enjoy also, like I used to enjoy physics and maths quite a lot, and I was good at it also. तो वो थोड़ा naturally होता चला गया. And like 11th 12th में ऐसा बहुत ज्यादा, मैं मुझे याद है कि अब हमारा जो मतलब मॉडर्न स्कूल इज नॉट नोन फॉर academics by the way. Like it's like स्कूल में जब मैं बोलता था कि यार like सैटरडे संडे में there are these classes, like we used to have these leadership camps on the weekend while I was in school in 11th 12th. तो they didn't used to encourage that quite a lot. So they were like, यार IIT तो किसी का होता नहीं है यहाँ पे. Like people go to different colleges, like there are different paths out there, but आप देख लो, like you go and attend these leadership camps that we are doing, or you go and study. So I kind of chose the latter because I had that belief that there's something that I really want to do, and I'm finding joy in this. तो वो मैंने मतलब खुद से ही motivated था. तो 11th 12th निकल गया ऐसे, and then I got a good rank also. Eventually मतलब IIT Delhi और IIT Roorkee में choice था, but then I joined IIT Roorkee instead.
लव, ये आईआईटी और आईएम की बात तो होती रहेगी, बट वन थिंग व्हिच आई हैव नेवर कम अक्रॉस, एटलीस्ट नॉट ऑन आवर चैनल, is someone who's like a twin. So how is life growing up as like a one of a pair of twins? Do people see you differently? Do people compare all the time on something or the
Yeah,
other?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, of course. मतलब बहुत ही different. Makes actually बहुत different है. Like I'm glad that you are kind of asked that question. Like as a twin, you know, like in your heart, right? Like I always knew that I have a companion. I have someone who always like who would care for me. Like and एक competition भी होता है. Like honestly साथ में कि like if he's doing well in something, then I'll have to do well in that aspect. And the great thing about me and my twin brother is that like we are very different personalities. जैसे if like जैसे MBTI में ना I am an INTJ. I don't know if how much would the viewers know about MBTI, but I am an INTJ. He is an ISFP. So like our worldview, our mindsets are very very different. जैसे मैं थोड़ा I always look internally for all the answers in my life. I would like अगर जैसे मुझे कोई problem हुआ, I would prefer sitting in my quiet space, like doing something that I want to do, and then like contemplate on this. And Kushka build is very different. Like he would go out there, he would discuss that with many people, and then come to a conclusion. So because of very different personalities, like like even though as INTJs are known to be very reserved people, but वो ऐसा हुआ मेरे साथ नहीं हुआ because I had like my twin brother who was tagging along in almost everything that I was taking on in my life. So all he was very good at making friends as well. So he used to like make friends like anything. तो वो साथ में मतलब चलता रहा, and like I got to, and like अगर like in MBTI terms, like it's always very hard to develop your four functions. But वो मेरे develop हो गए because like Kush had very like a very complementary set of skills. तो वो मेरे मतलब वो वाला side भी मेरा develop होता चला गया, and I was very lucky in that sense because
And are
I
you guys
eventually
identical twins or non-identical twins?
we are non-identical mix. We are not very non-identical. We are very different personalities as well. Uh, तो वो हाँ मतलब तो आई थिंक उसकी वजह से एक तो आई गॉट टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड एम्पथाइज विद वेरी डिफरेंट थॉट प्रोसेस बिकॉज जब अगर मैं कुछ सोच रहा हूँ आई इमीडिएटली हैड कुश हु वाज थिंकिंग समथिंग वेरी वेरी डिफरेंट तो उससे बहुत ज़्यादा एम्पैथी मुझ में डेवलप हो गया लाइक राइट फ्रॉम माई चाइल्डहुड लाइक इनटू वेरी डिफरेंट थॉट प्रोसेसेस और एक सेकंड थिंग जो हुआ लाइक आई गॉट टू नो दैट कि मतलब हर चीज सारे डिसीजंस को कैसे वे करना है मुझे लाइक हाउ टू टेक मेनी मेनी डिफरेंट पीपल अलोंग बिकॉज आई ऑलवेज हैड टू कन्विंस कुश टू डू समथिंग तो वो साइड ना मतलब बहुत सबकॉन्शियसली डेवलप होता चला गया चाइल्डहुड से एंड आई लेटर ऑन रियलाइज कि इट वाज अ बिग बिग थिंग दैट हैपेंड विद मी एंड
And
शेप्ड
where
मी.
did Kush go after class 12? You went to IIT Roorkee. Where did Kush go?
So he joined DTU, like Delhi Technological University. तो हमने वही हमने इंजीनियरिंग कुछ में इंजीनियरिंग किया ही वेंट इनटू मैथमेटिक्स एंड कंप्यूटिंग ऑल्दो कॉलेज में कुछ ज़्यादा पढ़ाई नहीं करी मैंने भी नहीं करी बट इसलिए बाद में फिर हमें एमबीए भी करना
And
पड़ा.
why did you choose IIT Roorkee over IIT Delhi? IIT Delhi तो लोग ज़्यादा जानते हैं ना, ब्रांड ज़्यादा बड़ा है.
या सो मतलब मेरा जो रैंक था इट वाज 1200 समथिंग विक्स तो उसमें आईआईटी दिल्ली में आई वाज गेटिंग केमिकल इंजीनियरिंग एंड सिविल इंजीनियरिंग बॉम्बे में आई वाज गेटिंग सिविल इंजीनियरिंग एंड रुड़की में आई वाज गेटिंग इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स एंड कंप्यूटर्स so I that's why like I wanted to do
Okay.
I wanted to be associated with computer science, right? So that's why I joined Roorkee.
Okay. And what happens after that? एक बार IIT Roorkee पहुंच गए. So 4 years. Any interesting incidents during those 4 years?
Oh yeah. मतलब actually Roorkee like वो जो एक journey था ना that was the first time when I was away from Kush. उस वक्त तो मतलब it was more like we were like entwined in our journey, right? Like till our 12th class. So first time, it was for me. It was a discovery of myself in that sense, right? Because now I was alone in my journey, and I had to shape my own future. तो वो जो 4 years थे, they were like quite very very interesting. Like वो एक तो मैंने सोच किया था कि ना मैं like I now I'll try to pursue things that I really wanted to do. तो वो 4 साल एक तो मतलब बहुत सारा मतलब पढ़ाई तो कम ही होती है एक्चुअली आईआईटीज में मतलब वो ज़्यादा बहुत ज़्यादा एकेडमिकली ड्रिवन कल्चर नहीं है बट वहां पे मतलब मैंने हम we used to like do these overnight gamings, overnight sports. I so उससे पहले ना I used to play table tennis for instance in modern. वो मैंने बहुत ज़्यादा रुड़की में ना I kind of honed that skill quite a lot. I became one of the uh, industry player as well, like sports player as well. और वहाँ पे IITs में ना we have these inter IITs which again is a very very good experience to have because then that's when you kind of understand कि वो pressure में कैसे खेलना है and वो proper अच्छा सा environment होता है इसमें like people bully each other quite a lot बहुत ज़्यादा pressure होता है and that's where you are representing your own institute and you have to like kind of excel in that kind of environment तो उसने मुझे काफी शेप किया एंड देन आई आल्सो स्टार्टेड आई मेट वेरी वेरी स्मार्ट लाइक बंच ऑफ फोक्स जो इवेंचुअली अब मेरे बहुत से क्लोज फ्रेंड्स भी बने तो उनके थ्रू लाइक आई यूज्ड टू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ डिस्कशंस कि इवेंचुअली लाइफ में क्या करना है and we all like IIT Roorkee is one such institute where there are a lot of entrepreneurs that were born out like within those batches 2013 14 15 like जो batches से मैं pass out हो रहा था for instance Harshil Mathur Sunesh, like there are many, many notable alumni coming out of that batch, and it was no wonder because वो हमारे institute was known for um, creating these budding entrepreneurs. वो environment ही ऐसा था because you were kind of holed up in this like small city called Roorkee. There was not much to do outside, so people used to bond quite a lot, and we had a culture where we used to discuss problems, we used to discuss solutions, we used to discuss कि यार ये जो बड़े startups हैं like Oyo, Ola, like these were all coming up back then. So we used to discuss कि यार ये कैसे हो रहा है and let's start up on our own. We eventually did not do anything, मतलब startup नहीं start किया, but बहुत सारी चीजें जो मैंने अभी उसके बाद लाइफ में करी है was kind of shaped from whatever discussions I had during my Roorkee time.
So, what were some of the startups that came out of IIT Roorkee during those years?
Oh, this
Something
is
that
like
you may share?
Razorpay.
Resume,
See,
okay.
Razorpay, yeah. Actually, बहुत सारे हैं. There's something called FamPay as well, जो वो मेरे juniors ही थे, 2017 batch. Uh, these are two like very big companies, and then बहुत सारे like there are बहुत सारे startups की leadership है that is actually from Roorkee. जैसे Housing.com का leadership was from IIT Roorkee. Uh, एंड अभी बहुत सारे याद नहीं आ रहा बट लाइक विच देर आर many more वो बहुत सारे स्टार्टअप्स का लीडरशिप इज एक्चुअली IIT रुड़की के ही लोग हैं वो एंड वो सारे उसी बैच के हैं 13 to 16 to 17 वाला जो बैच है वो 4-5 years के people have done actually done quite well in the startup world in
So
general.
Luv, in
Very
the
much like Khalid.
90s, I remember that Roorkee was a separate institute. बाद में उसको IIT बना दिया गया, stamping. So
Right.
when you did your
Yeah.
engineering, is it now fully integrated in the IIT system? या
Yeah.
अभी भी does it retain an identity of its own?
वो मतलब सो आई हैड जॉइंड इन 2010 वो आईआईटी बन गया था 2001 में तो आई वाज 9 years इनटू दैट होल जर्नी तो मतलब मेरे टाइम पे इट वाज कंप्लीटली आईआईटी में सो पूरा एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन चेंज हो गया था लाइक पूरा लाइक कुछ कुछ ट्रेडिशन थे जो वो इंस्टीट्यूट से पहले आए थे जैसे लाइक वी यूज्ड टू आई डिस्टिंक्टली रिमेंबर व्हेन आई so we used to those days like the sessions used to start in peak summers May, June, July wala. So like we were these first years who came to Roorkee and they were like mind you there were no AC schoolers in the hostel right so you were like in a very hot environment you used to like sit in like fans and all right so obviously naturally you would want to wear shorts and all right in the hostel बट हमारे में एक ट्रेडिशन था बहुत ही मतलब जो ब्रिटिश के टाइम से चल रहा था वेयर यू हैड टू गो टू मेस यूज वेयरिंग पैंट्स एंड full sleeves which was like and we were like this is so idiotic man like in इतनी गर्मी में like you expect people to kind of wear pants and come to mess but we eventually so उस वक्त ना मतलब रुड़की में one very interesting thing happened like I kind of got involved in the whole politics side of things in IITs like वो भी बहुत मतलब काफी ज्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग होता है like वो काफी कट थ्रोट मतलब प्रॉपर हम political campaigns करते हैं IITs में तो like I remember that we sat on a dharna to kind of oppose that whole thing and we succeeded like to reverse that whole decision तो तो वो मतलब that is I remember that because वो एक tradition था जो institute से चल रहा था but वो भी खत्म कर दिया था हमने eventually तो we were kind of completely integrated in the IIT set of things. Uh, but हाँ मतलब मैंने personally उस वक्त like वो 4 साल like I was quite active in student politics. Like I became one of the Bhavan secretaries, like हमारे hostel के secretaries also in third year. So yeah, I think it was good actually. It was something that
अब
shaped me.
यूपी में रहोगे या मे बी उत्तरांचल में, तो पॉलिटिक्स तो हर चीज में ही होता है. I'm not even surprised
Exactly,
about that.
exactly.
What I am surprised,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always thought
yeah,
that, क्योंकि I've never been to Roorkee, but I know कि वो हरिद्वार के रास्ते में आता है. दिल्ली से अगर हरिद्वार जाओ तो रास्ते में कहीं पर आता है, just before हरिद्वार.
yeah.
So
Yes, yes, yes.
I always was under the impression that it will be slightly more hilly, slightly थोड़ा सा ठंडा weather होगा and all that, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I also expected the same mix. इनफैक्ट मतलब मैं एक और चीज बता रहा हूँ जो मतलब मैंने ना मतलब मुझे जस्ट अभी याद आया जो मैंने कभी सोचा नहीं था. बट जैसे आईआईटीज जब आईआईटीज में होता है ना तो एडमिशन करने वी यूज टू गो टू वन ऑफ द इंस्टीट्यूट्स टू फिल द फॉर्म. तो मैं आईआईटी दिल्ली गया था एंड वो अगेन बहुत एकदम पीक समर था मई में आईआईटी दिल्ली में. एंड दैट्स व्हेन आई हैड एक्सप्लोर्ड द कैंपस थोड़ा सा वो हॉस्टल वगैरह देखा था एंड shocked I was shocked to see the state of hostels in IIT Delhi. And I think perhaps that was one of the reasons why I chose Roorkee eventually. Because I thought that yeah, state इतना तो बुरा नहीं होगा मतलब किसी भी कॉलेज में. And I also thought that Roorkee है तो थोड़ा ठंडा होगा, but ऐसा था नहीं. Like it was very very similar. It was in the same boat, I must say.
right, right. So Love, you were talking about entrepreneurs, and it was an era, all these entrepreneurs coming out of IIT Roorkee, आपके seniors, juniors सब. But you went for like an MBA, जो मतलब सबसे boring और सबसे unimaginative career है. Why?
Yeah, yeah. No, actually वो मैं मतलब उसके बाद में बताता हूँ क्या हुआ. जैसे रुड़की के बाद ना I joined this company called Cisco, which was in Bangalore. तो वो 2 साल में again like it was a very very different world from what I had seen in रुड़की. एक तो बहुत जैसे when once you like kind of get out of the campus and you join a job, you get exposed to one senior people as well, right? Like people who are 10 years into a job setting, and they are a lot more professional, I must say. Like college में इतना professionally लोग बात नहीं करते थे, and like that was a very different world. And it जब वहाँ पे जाके interaction हुआ, then I realized that maybe मतलब I need to develop things that are still not developed in my Roorkee world. उसमें और मतलब उसमें एक और चीज था जैसे रुड़की में ना you the like since it was a little bit isolated, so there were like a lot of companies that did not used to come to Roorkee, that used to come to Delhi or Bombay. तो वो भी एक मतलब मुझे था कि यार I think this is one like area in my life that I really need to develop. एक तो I have to get into lot more professional setting. I need to see how companies are run because usme like there's a company called Class Plus, by the way, which also like from one of the IIT Roorkee alumni. He was like 1 year senior to me, electronics batch. तो उनको मुकुल को मैंने like I had seen him very closely building this whole startup from scratch, and I could see like how many mistakes they are making like from the start. They eventually figured out it's a very big company now, but उनको मैं but वो ना थोड़ा सा ना मेरे दिमाग में रह गया कि यार मतलब I think in order to do this, like if I have to take this leap eventually in my life, right, then I need to learn how you develop a big company, how you develop culture, how you nurture talent in your company, how you retain talent. तो ये सब things ना मतलब मुझे and फिर मैंने उस वक्त ना I used to like also read up stuff about how Meta, how Apple, for instance, like how these companies are made, right? उस वक्त बहुत एक अच्छी movie भी आई थी Jobs पे, and those things kind of inspired me quite a lot because then I realized कि यार मतलब कंपनी बनाना ही मतलब जैसे उससे पहले तक लगता था कि यार कंपनी बनाना is like कि you have an idea, you build this, and then you figure out on your journey, right, how these things are done. But then I like ये सब cases देखे ना I realized that no यार मतलब I think if you have to build something of your own, then and if you have to build it sustainably, right, then you have to kind of understand how to attract talent, how to वही मतलब culturally how to build and shape an organization. So and that's when I kind of realized कि यार maybe I need an MBA degree because ये सब चीजें मुझे अभी नहीं आती हैं, and this something that also does not come naturally to me. जैसे बहुत सारे लोगों को naturally आता है ये करना. They are good at it, but like I knew that this is something that I have to
So that reminds me, before this Jobs movie came out, A few years before that, there was a movie which I remember seeing, 2010 probably, called The Social Network. And
Exactly. Yeah.
and I'm reminded of that because उसमें एक वो Winklevoss twins होते थे. So didn't you
Right.
and your brother decide कि यार अब हम भी करते हैं कुछ?
या नहीं एग्जैक्टली मतलब मैं कुछ डिस्कस कर रहे थे मिक्स बट लाइक अगेन कुश का मतलब माइंडसेट थोड़ा डिफरेंट है कुश वाज ऑन अ डिफरेंट जर्नी ऑल टुगेदर येट ही वाज वो दिल्ली में ही था ही वाज इन डीटीयू तो हिज लाइक वर्ल्ड व्यू वाज बीइंग शेप्ड बाय हिज सराउंडिंग बट हमने मतलब मैंने कुछ ने उस वक्त तक नहीं सोचा था कि स्टार्टअप करना है बट वो इंटरेस्टिंग कहानी है आई थिंक इट विल कम ड्यूरिंग माय डिस्कशन विद पॉकेट एफएम बिकॉज राइट नाउ आई एम वर्किंग विद हिम we are both working with like Pocket FM in the US.
Okay, we'll come to that when we reach the Pocket FM. So you were talking about, so you decided that you need some professional business degree and इसलिए MBA किया, but you were in Cisco. So were there
Right.
other people? Was there like a cohort, 2 year work ex लोग जो सब साथ में बैठ के CAT preparation कर रहे हैं?
हाँ तो मतलब मेरे साथ में जो थे एक्चुअली मेरे सीनियर तो कोई नहीं था बट मेरे साथ के लोग लाइक वी वर अ बंच लाइक वी वर 6 people हु वर काइंड ऑफ प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर कैट ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम तो हमने और उससे पहले मेरा एक बहुत क्लोज फ्रेंड है सिद्धांत he was my root one of my Roorkee mates we had he was my flatmate as well in Bangalore when I joined Cisco and he had gone to IIM Cal in 2016 तो उस सब से मतलब मेरा डिसीजन काफी ज्यादा शेप हो गया था एंड इवेंचुअली आई न्यू लाइक उसने भी वो भी शेयर करता था of what is happening in IIM Calcutta, what kind of companies, what kind of what kind of people he is kind of experiencing there. तो उन सब से काफी सारा शेप हो गया मेरा वर्ल्ड व्यू एंड देन eventually like 6 of us we prepared for IIMs and like all of us I think got into one of the other IIMs and one of the girls like she got into Exoderm. So we prepared together and like kind of faced it during that year.
Got it. And did you get help from each other or was it just a competition?
No, actually वो काफी थोड़ा सा मतलब डिफरेंट था लाइक सो आईआईटी रुड़की से लाइक आईआईटी से इनफैक्ट लाइक सिर्फ दो ही लोग थे मैं और प्रिंस थे एंड देन ऑल अदर पीपल वर नॉट फ्रॉम लाइक दे वर फ्रॉम अ कॉलेज कॉल्ड आईजीटीटीयू इन दिल्ली आ, तो लेकिन ना मतलब सिंस मैं और प्रिंस मतलब हम आईआईटी से थे तो फिर जैसे मैथ्स एंड डीआई वाज समथिंग दैट लाइक केम वेरी वेरी नेचुरली टू अस हम वो तो मतलब ड्यूरिंग आईआईटी इयर्स ही लाइक यू एंड अप प्रिपेयरिंग सो वेल दैट वो इवेंचुअली कैलकुलेशन वगैरह बहुत फास्ट हो जाता है तो फिर वी बोथ वर काइंड ऑफ वेरी वेरी गुड एट इट वो हम जैसे कुछ मॉक टेस्ट वगैरह देने जाते थे साथ में एंड मुझे याद है लाइक आई यूज्ड टू स्कोर लाइक समथिंग लाइक 210 आउट ऑफ 300 220 out of 300 and like some of वो हमारे छह के ग्रुप में like three of the people that they barely used to touch 100 during that time तो उससे ना मतलब बहुत तो मतलब eventually I ended up kind of teaching everyone कि कैसे करना है I developed very मतलब मुझे याद है वो ऐसे कुछ कुछ टेक्निक्स मैंने डेवलप करके दी थी उनको कि यार ये कैलकुलेशन आए ना तो फिर like you have to this is how you need to test out all the options before really thinking about solving a question right कभी क्वेश्चन को पूरा पूरा सॉल्व नहीं करना तो आई डेवलप्ड अ लॉट ऑफ टेक्निक्स एंड उसका जो जेनेसिस था वाज लाइक प्योरली बिकॉज आई वांटेड टू टीच देम आई वांटेड देम टू डू वेल एज वेल इन द एग्जाम तो उससे मेरा भी मतलब काफी प्रिपरेशन हो गया था बिकॉज आई वाज आल्सो फोर्स्ड टू थिंक समथिंग व्हिच लाइक आई हैड नॉट थॉट आउट लाइक बाय देन
So by this time you knew कि मुझे IIM में जाना है because you had some seniors and friends जिनसे you were. But why IIM? Because a lot of people they say we'll do a global MBA, we'll go to Europe, we'll go to the US.
या No, this is a very good question. In fact, like जब मैं modern में था, like a lot of my batchmates had all like gone to these different universities in the US. Yale में थे गए थे बहुत सारे लोग. Uh, but मतलब somehow like जब when I thought about doing these degrees, like I thought that I have to be in India because एक तो like during my rookie days, like I mentioned that I had gotten uh, this like whole I got attached with politics quite a lot, like, and उस वक्त मतलब एक तो वो भी हो रहा था like this whole wave about like I don't want this podcast to be like political but उस वक्त बीजेपी का वो पूरा and वो आम आदमी पार्टी was also coming up during those years right 2013-14 तो उससे बहुत ज्यादा मतलब मैं politically shape हुआ था and that's why I did not use like I never wanted to leave India honestly during that time And that is the reason, मतलब जब MBA भी आया, I could have done a global MBA, but I never appeared for GMAT. Like for instance, it was very clear in my head कि यार मतलब करना है तो एक बार इंडिया से करते हैं, and then I'll try to like do something in India itself eventually.
Right. So, Love, I was seeing your LinkedIn profile, and you mentioned there that you got 100 percentile in CAT. उसका what does that really mean? I've caught on a bit because हमारे time पर तो नहीं होता था, but now doing this,
Okay.
but I don't think I still fully understand. One is the technicality. How can someone be 100 percentile? Because technically 100 percentile is not possible.
So yeah, you're right. Mix actually 98.98 था मेरा. I was 100% in quants. तो मतलब उसमें ना हमारे टाइम पे ऐसा हो गया था कि someone who is like between 99.99 to like high, जो top 20 लोग होते हैं उनको CAT used to call 100 percentiles. Then 20 to 40 को they used to call them 99.99. 40 to 60 is 99.98 and so on. Depends on like number of people who appear. हमारे टाइम पे like around 200,000 people appeared, तो इसलिए 2020 के
Wow, that's a huge number
uh,
even for India.
oh yeah, it was huge. Like back then, like मेरे time पे I think cat had become very very popular. In fact, like I know that many people even from my batch kind of appeared for cat during different years, like and got into different times.
Right, right. So you topped, you cracked CAT. Did you get all calls, or how did
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happen?
So yeah, I got all the calls. Ahmedabad मुझे bail ही आया था. Like during my time, Ahmedabad had changed their criteria quite a lot. Because उससे पहले it was most of the IIMs had very huge like weightage of CAT, and then बाकी सब sections का थोड़ा कम weightage होता था. For instance, 10, 12 college percentage का. But during my time, Ahmedabad had come up with a very different criteria where they started segregating people into engineering and non-engineering degrees. So engineers को and they wanted to have very very distinct like focus on non-engineering degrees as well. तो उसकी वजह से like for an engineer, if you really wanted to get an Ahmedabad call, you had to be in 99.9 plus kind of zone. If let's say one of your 10, 12 में या फिर college में if you are 90% less वाले zone में. So it was almost like it was very hard to get an Ahmedabad call, but I did get it
Okay,
and
okay. And then you
eventually
went
appeared.
for all interviews. How? Tell us something about interviews. कुछ interesting.
Yeah. No, बहुत different. But actually, that's when I kind of realized. अच्छा उससे पहले ना मतलब interviews is something that like उससे पहले तक like before I had appeared for IIM interviews, it used to cause me a lot of anxiety. Like and वो ना ऐसा लगता नहीं है कि दिल्ली के बंदे में मतलब बहुत सा anxiety होगी, but I was someone who dreaded that whole experience, like public speaking, interviews, like these sort of things. And that was also one of the reasons that why I wanted to do a management degree, right? Because I kind of understood that if I have to excel in life, like if I have to be a notable leader in eventually, right? So I have to develop this side of me as well. तो मैंने उससे पहले Toastmasters वगैरह में मतलब I had joined in Delhi, in Roorkee as well. And I kind of honed that whole side of me. And then like जब वो interviews आए, उससे पहले तक ना मतलब जब आप कैट करते हो ड्यूरिंग माय टाइम देयर वर लॉट ऑफ पीपल हु वर गिविंग दिस होल इंटरव्यू मॉक इंटरव्यूज वाला ट्रेनिंग थे एंड उसके तब तक आई रियलाइज उस उन्होंने तो बहुत ज्यादा हुआ क्रिएट किया हुआ था लाइक दे वर लाइक वो शिट वो ये सब पूछेंगे लाइक ये पूछेंगे लाइक इट वुड बी सो टफ you have to be prepared with general knowledge India ka and whatnot but then eventually like my first interview was actually Calcutta I am Calcutta ka interview and when I तो उससे पहले उस दिन तक तो मतलब आई वाज लाइक कि यार शिट पता नहीं क्या कुछ भी रैंडम क्वेश्चन पूछ लेंगे करंट अफेयर्स वगैरह मुझे आई वाज वेरी बैड लाइक माय मेमोरी इज वेरी बैड आई एम समवन हु इज अ वेरी लाइक बिग एनालिटिकल थिंकर बट मेमोरी ऑलवेज जहाँ पे मेमोरी आता है मेमोराइजिंग आता है आई ऑलवेज टेक अ बैक सीट तो आई वाज लाइक कि शिट यार वो कुछ भी रैंडम क्वेश्चन पूछ लेंगे आई डोंट लाइक रिमेंबर मोस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स and like I'll probably not do so well in the interview, right? But when I entered the room, so it was a panel of three people, two professors who were very sweet, by the way, and one alumni who was like little scary. तो वो हम मैं बैठा and then interview एकदम ही जब शुरू हुआ like they initially asked me to introduce myself, which I did. but that was something that I had prepared beforehand. And uske baad, the whole interview kind of circled around my this whole obsession of classic literature. Like, because I used to read a lot of classic literature before that. Like, I had read most of the books by Tolstoy, by Dostoevsky, and so on. तो वो पूरा का पूरा वो 1 hour का interview conversation went around that, which I had not expected. Like, honestly, वो मैं मतलब वो तो मैं इतने साल से कर रहा था, तो मुझे चीजें याद थी. I could have a very like enriching conversation with them. But then I realized कि यार वो interview अच्छा ही था. मतलब it was a good experience for me. I believe it was a good experience for the interviews as well. And then I realized that बॉस नॉर्मल ही है. मतलब ऐसा बहुत ज्यादा कुछ भी मतलब जो भी वो क्रिएट किया था उसके अराउंड एयर वो वैसा नहीं है. इट्स लाइक they just want to know you as a person, and that's probably it. And उसके बाद वो जो भी इंटरव्यूज हुए, I kind of they were all good except the अहमदाबाद इंटरव्यू. वो थोड़ा सा interesting story है. मतलब again अहमदाबाद में I think for some reason the interviewer um, went into like very gory details about my academic things, and which I had no idea. Like, honestly, I was someone जिसने मतलब even though मेरे जो grades वगैरह थे they were 7.8 out of 10, जो कि average है like by Roorkee standards, but मुझे कुछ भी याद नहीं था honestly उसका. तो but he went into like such details कि यार ये कैसे काम करता है, वो कैसे काम करता है. I had no idea. So I probably like I did not do that well in Ahmedabad. Eventually got waitlisted, but barring Ahmedabad, I aced all the interviews.
Do you think it was because you didn't know the answer, or do you think you visibly got stressed and you could have moved on?
Yeah. I think Ahmedabad वाला interview was probably that mix. मतलब मुझे ऐसा लग रहा था कि जब initially जब वो एक question आया and then I got stressed, and उसके बाद ना फिर the whole interview kind of went south because once like they also sensed that you were a little stressed, right? So he just I thought that the interview kept on pressing on like that button, because like he wanted to see if I'll tumble under pressure, and I probably did. तो वो मतलब eventually वो थोड़ा सा सही हो गया. Like I got waitlisted, but that was not something that I expected. Like I expected to kind of face that also.
But do all IIMs now have an interview where you have two professors and one alumnus, or was that only for Calcutta?
So it was the case for Calcutta. It was a case for ABC, like all three. But barring like ABC, I think Lucknow, Kozhikode, and मतलब ये तो था. I did not appear for Indore. In उन दोनों में नहीं थे. Like both were professors.
Okay, okay. And Bangalore interview कैसे था?
Bangalore का interview, I think मतलब out of all the institutes, like one of the best ही था. It was the whole interview was kind of very professional. Actually, एक Bangalore में ना मतलब मेरे time में there was also this thing where you had to submit an SOP before going in the interview. तो वो उनको आपकी लाइफ के बारे में तो पहले से ही पता होता है. Like it was very similar to what a lot of foreign universities like in any case do, right? तो उन and because I had submitted that SOP, so जो पूरा interview था, it was colored by all the experience that I had noted down in my SOP. So I think Bangalore में the good thing is that SOP is very important. Like you think about what you're writing there, but if you do a good job on your SOP, then probably the whole interview would kind of revolve around that itself. तो वो
Right.
वही
So
हुआ
SOP
मतलब
is
it
your
was
chance. SOP is statement of purpose. Is that right?
yes,
So what do
exactly.
you have to cover? Do you have to cover your what you want to do in life post MBA?
Both the things make so उसमें ना like they give you 600 words का limit उसमें, and you can probably stretch it to 800, from 600 to 800 तो words. तो उसमें ना you can actually note down everything, like उससे पहले life में क्या किया है, who are you as a person, what are your hobbies, what do you want to do in life, MBA से MBA क्यों करना चाहते हो. तो you probably like you end up answering all the questions that they want to know like in the interview itself.
So what did you write? You want to be in the startup world, or do you want to be a banker? क्या लिखा उसमें? सच सच बताना.
हाँ तो मैं बताता हूँ उसमें. अब ना उसमें पहले तो मतलब मुझे याद है कि जब मैं एसओपी लिख रहा था तो मैं बहुत जेनेरिक चीजें लिख रहा था कि यार ये आई वांट टू नो मोर अबाउट बिजनेस एंड स्टफ. तो लेकिन इवेंचुअली पता नहीं मुझे क्या हुआ. मतलब मैंने सोचा कि यार मतलब मैं ऐसा करता हूँ, मैं सच ही लिख देता हूँ. मतलब जैसे बहुत सारे वो आंसर्स फ्लोट हो रहे थे कि यार आप ऐसा लिखो कि उसमें कि मैंने बिकॉज ऑफ माई इंजीनियरिंग बहुत एनालिटिकल मैं बन गया हूँ. आई नो एवरीथिंग अबाउट इंजीनियरिंग, but now I want to develop my business side of things. वो जेनरिक सा आंसर होता है, सब लोग वही, मतलब मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल एंड अप प्रिपेयरिंग दैट इटसेल्फ. तो लेकिन मैंने पहले वो ड्राफ्ट लिखा, बट देन व्हेन आई रेड इट आई रियलाइज कि शिट यार, ये मतलब दिस इज नॉट मी. एंड लाइक मैं इसको देन आई चेक दैट ड्राफ्ट, और फिर उसके बाद मैंने ना जो सेकंड ड्राफ्ट लिखा, लाइक दैट वाज समथिंग दैट आई वांटेड टू कम्युनिकेट टू द इंटरव्यूअर्स, राइट. उसमें मैंने लिखा एग्जैक्टली exactly कि यार वो स्कूल तक, कॉलेज तक, लाइक हु एम आई एज अ पर्सन. I wrote about how curiosity drives me, how I want to do something eventually in my life where I want to see something grow and become very very big. तो मैंने वही चीज एग्जैक्टली लिखी इसमें, एंड फिर वो इंटरव्यू में मैं ग्रिल भी हुआ. ऐसा नहीं था कि मतलब दे वर लाइक कि अरे यार अभी तक तुमने सोचा नहीं है कि क्या करना लाइफ है, एंड आई वाज लाइक यार सोचा होता तो फिर मैं शायद एमबीए डिग्री नहीं करने आता. मतलब सोचा नहीं है, बट आई नो दैट आई वांट टू मेक अ बिग मार्क इन दिस वर्ल्ड. एंड दैट्स प्रॉब्ली आई नो दैट बिकॉज ऑफ लाइक एग्जैक्टली जो मैं आज मैंने इस वाले पॉडकास्ट में बोला, राइट. मुझे पता था कि यार दीज आर द शॉर्ट कमिंग्स दैट आई हैव एंड दिस इज व्हाट आई हैव आइडेंटिफाइड. And probably this MBA degree would help me in overcoming a lot of these shortcomings. And they were like quite kind of very happy after the interview, because like when I caught the alumni who was like sitting in that panel, he came out with me and he was like, "Yeah, love, मतलब मजा आया बात करके." It was a very different sort of interview. So फिर eventually I realized कि यार मतलब ये चीज ना होना चाहिए लाइफ में. मैं वो भी एक चीज ने मुझे काफी शेप किया कि I have to be very very genuine when I'm appearing in certain settings, right? So, some like it was an experience that kind of stayed with me after that.
Who were the professors who were there in the interview? We might actually know them.
I don't remember the name Vix now. It's been 7 years and my memory is bad. So, yeah.
So,
You got in all IIMs except for Ahmedabad, whichever
Yeah, I
ones you
got
went
in
up
all
for.
the,
So how was your
right.
choice then, Bangalore? Was it because you're already in Bangalore, to Bangalore mein jana hai because you already had a friend in
I,
Calcutta? Didn't you think about that? Was that a tough decision?
no, yeah, it was for me, like it was between Bangalore and Calcutta. But then eventually, मतलब एक चीज मुझे realize हुआ था कि like already been, I had experienced IIT Roorkee, for instance, right? वो एक institute which is based in a city which is different, like which is not a metro city. तो मुझे ना, and I kind of knew the shortcomings of that environment because मुझे पता था कि यार वो struggle तो करता है. Like if the institute is not based in such a in a big
चलो ये
metro
तो
city, right?
ट्रेलर
So
पे
I
डालेंगे कि कैलकाटा इज नॉट अ मेट्रो सिटी.
it's actually quite far from the main city. वो 40 kilometers लगता है. एंड वो मेरे दोस्त ने बता दिया था मुझे एक्चुअली कि यार वो देख, इफ यू आर एक्सपेक्टिंग कि कैलकाटा के बीच में, तो नहीं है. इट इज इन जोका, लाइक इट विच इज लाइक क्वाइट फार फ्रॉम द मेन
दैट्स
सिटी.
वन एंड प्लस आई डोंट नो, माय इंप्रेशन इज कि कैलकाटा में कुछ ज्यादा कॉर्पोरेट बिजनेस है नहीं. आई मीन बैंगलोर में है, मुंबई में है, हैदराबाद, दिल्ली, यहाँ पर है,
Yeah,
बट
I'll tell you.
कैलकाटा इज लाइक वन ऑफ, नाउ इट्स बिकम अ टियर 2.
I'll tell you an interesting thing, Mike. See, कैलकाटा ना, तो मुझे मुझे तो सबने ये एडवाइस किया था कैलकाटा ही ज्वाइन करो. एंड मैं आपको बताता हूँ क्यों. देखो बैंगलोर में ड्यूरिंग माय टाइम देयर वाज अ बिग एम्फेसिस ऑन एकेडमिक अचीवमेंट्स. तो जैसे मेरे बैच में लाइक मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल दैट आई न्यू were people who had gotten 95% plus in their 10th 12th and 90% plus in their college, like almost like 70-80% जनता वही थी. और आई was someone जिसका मतलब 10th में आई was a school topper, but 12th में I had 87 something, like less than 90, and college में तो मतलब 80 भी नहीं था, 78 था. तो आई was like, और तो मेरे दोस्त ने मुझे बोला कि यार देख, अगर तुझे if you want to be like in the top echelons of like whatever jobs that you post in MBA, right, then छोड़ दे बैंगलोर. मतलब because वहाँ पे you will like probably end up competing with that cohort, and like obviously your CV will not stand out. तो लेकिन still I like in my heart I knew कि यार मतलब वो नहीं करता, like because I knew कि यार eventually, and because I had also connected with some people who had done their MBAs like 3-4 years before me. वो मतलब मेरे रुड़की के ही थे, and they eventually like some, there are actually बहुत बैंगलोर में बहुत बड़ा cohort है रुड़की का. In my batch itself there were like 25 people, and there used to be 20-25 people in every batch almost. तो उनसे कनेक्ट किया तो आई रियलाइज कि यार ठीक है, मतलब कैंपस के बाद एक जॉब मैटर करता है, बट इवेंचुअली 4-5 years डाउन द लाइन डजंट इवन मैटर मच. तो लाइक आई वाज काइंड ऑफ प्रिपेयर्ड कि यार वहाँ पे कंपटीशन होगा, देखेंगे. बट लाइक फॉर मी व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट इज दैट आई वांट टू बी इन सच एन एनवायरनमेंट where like I'm kind of competing with uh, absolute like top people, right? And Bangalore, that's why like kind of became that choice. And I knew that Bangalore also like had a lot of emphasis on people with work experience, like people who are 2 3 years or post 3 years in their jobs. Calcutta was a relatively younger cohort. तो वो भी एक reason था because I wanted to be in an environment which is like shaped by more mature conversations eventually.
Right, right. Well, I'm glad you took the right decision. As most of our viewers know, both of us are also from IIM Bangalore. That said,
Yeah,
I think this is a decision, Love, that is for different people. Some people might choose one IIM over the other. They're all
yeah,
very similar, but they're also they have their slight nuance differences. So I think city, whether it's composition of batch, whether it is gender composition, I'm sure that is also slightly different, whether it is small town versus big town feel, आपके कैंपस में कितनी लेक्स हैं, people can take a decision based on 100 different factors. But tell us, I mean, I'm like really excited. So your 2 years at IIM Bangalore, I've got fond memories. Katie has fond memories, so we've got like, but those memories are from 25 years ago. So how is
okay.
it? I know that IIM Bangalore has quadrupled in size in terms of the batch strength compared to when we were. We had 180 people. If I'm not
Oh
mistaken, अभी
God.
500 plus है per
हाँ
year.
हाँ अभी 600 प्लस हो तो माय बैच वाज 600 प्लस माय एंड आई न्यू कि आई थिंक अभी जो करंट बैच है माइट बी अराउंड 800 और 900 प्लस लाइक सो नाउ देयर आर प्लान्स टू एक्सपैंड इट टू 1000
Full
more.
time MBA. This is without any corporate 1 year, 6 month, all those courses that have mushroomed.
या या दिस इज जस्ट द 2 year वाला cohort.
So इतने लोगों की जगह कहाँ है? Help me understand it. क्योंकि हमारे टाइम पे तो J block तक होता था. And that is
यू
it.
राइट राइट तो जे ब्लॉक मतलब वो ओल्ड ब्लॉक्स रह गए मेरे अभी ना अनफॉर्चुनेटली उसके
Yeah,
बाद ना देयर
there
वाज
weren't any other buildings.
अ
MDC was built in
या
front of us. As in हमारे first year में
ओह रियली
MDC complete हुआ था.
गॉट इट नहीं तो उसके बाद ना फिर पूरा के से लेके एन ब्लॉक्स बने हैं मिक्स नाउ तो इट्स कॉल्ड द न्यू हॉस्टल नो वन वांट्स टू बी देयर एवरीवन वांट्स टू बी इन द ओल्ड ब्लॉक बट उसके बाद फिर K2N पूरा नया हॉस्टल बना हुआ है इट्स लाइक 3 story बिल्डिंग और उसके बाद लाइक व्हेन आई वाज लीविंग बैंगलोर तब लाइक कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑन था लाइक देयर इज गोइंग टू बी अ कैंपस आउटसाइड द IIMB कैंप current campus and
That's
I
for
think
the
that will
bachelors, right?
house.
The bachelors that is starting next year,
Yeah,
or is it in
exactly.
2 years?
No, no. So I think back then we were still deciding. I think us work, like from all the conversation that I used to have, right, with my professors, like they were like, yeah, most probably we'll house the MBA cohorts as well. But I think Abhi, you are right. I think decision is between ki bachelors ko वहाँ पे करते हैं and MBA will like probably be in this campus itself,
Right. Okay.
right?
Okay. So you have had like 500, 600 per batch. Isn't it all? Do you have different mess or mess अभी उतना ही है? Mess भी और बना हुआ है?
Same है. मैं सेम ही है मैं सो वो एक ही है बट आई थिंक वो एक्सपैंड हुआ था आपके बाद ना वो आई थिंक मोस्ट प्रॉब्ली like 5 years before I had joined IIM Bangalore, it was expanded and like it's a big mess. It can house like close
Now
to.
there's a second floor and all that, right? And our time there was only a single floor.
Oh, नहीं मेरे time पे भी it was a single floor. But I've heard like I'm not sure, but I've heard that now they have converted this into a two-floor building.
Got it. Got it. And tell us a bit about life. I mean, non-academic life that you had in 2 years, non-placement, non-academics.
या सो लाइक आई एम बैंगलोर में अगेन मतलब मेरा बहुत ही डिफरेंट लाइक जर्नी रहा है इवेंचुअली आई नो सो इवेंट सो स्टार्टिंग में लाइक वी आपको भी याद होगा आई डोंट नो इट यूज्ड टू इफ यू दिस यूज्ड टू हैपन 25 years back but like during our time like 2 weeks into the MBA program they we used to have these club interviews जहाँ पे जितने भी like during my time they were like more than 30 clubs बट देन टॉप थ्री वो तो वही थे वो कल्चरल कमिटी FII ENI तो वो आई थिंक वो बड़ा फ्रेंजी वाला टाइम था बिकॉज लाइक people were appearing and like we used to have a proper like roadie style interviews to get into these clubs.
So to
Uh,
join a club, you were interviewed.
oh yeah, it was a full on like 2 to 3 day proper interviews होते थे, and like they were not interviews, like it was a proper like एकदम रोडी style में होता था, जहाँ पे like they used to like put you in like a lot of pressure वाला situation, like all the seniors, right? Now eventually I kind of realized that all of them are really sweet, but उन interviews में तो like a lot of them were really really scary. तो मतलब उससे पहले तो तक तो ऑनबोर्डिंग वगैरह ही चल रहा था, बट हाँ इवेंचुअली आई अपीयर्ड फॉर लाइक ऑल दोज इंटरव्यूज. तो उस वक्त मतलब एक एक चीज मुझे काफी क्लियर हुआ था कि इफ यू हैव टू लाइक, so eventually IIM Bangalore is a very consulting driven campus, right? So people who get into people always like aspire to become like part of either McKinsey, BCG, Bain, or like other like consulting companies who are coming into campus. And for some reason, वो life ना मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा driven थी, like to get into one of these companies, right? And it was all promised कि यार एक बार वो हो जाएगा, then you will have a very good career like beyond that. And to get into these companies, it was again, it was not something which was not said explicitly, but people knew that if you really want to be a part of this, right, then and especially if you want to intern in one of these companies, right, it's always great to join one of the clubs, and like one of the top three clubs in the campus. So वो था मतलब, and that's why like those interviews kind of became very very interesting, important. तो आई अपियर्ड फॉर ऑल द इंटरव्यूज. तो मतलब मेरा, मुझे याद है मतलब एक नेक्स्ट डे वो पूरा रिजल्ट वगैरह आने वाले थे. आई हैड गॉटन इनटू लास्ट राउंड्स ऑफ ऑल थ्री, कलकॉम, एफआईआई, एएनआई. तो उससे जब वो डिस्कशन चल रहा था, एंड इससे पहले ना एक और इंटरेस्टिंग थोड़ा स्टोरी है. मतलब आई एम ऑल्सो समवन हु लव्स दिस होल अंडरडॉग वाला स्टोरी फॉर सम रीजन. लाइक आई जब भी मतलब मैंने डिसीजन कुछ लिया है ना, जैसे आईआईटी रुड़की लाइक is an underdog campus in terms of all the IITs. I am Bangalore, मतलब although a top institute है, but I have always found myself wanting to be a part of an underdog story. तो जब ये interviews हुए, I knew that if I choose like either Qualcomm or FII, then I'll be in for a better chance eventually. But वो मेरा मन ना like it was fixated on ENI because
Pehle, Love, what is FII? Maybe the nomenclatures have changed. What is FII and
oh
ANI?
yeah. So FII is Forum for Industrial Interaction, and ENI is the Entrepreneurship Club, Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and Culcom is Cultural Committee. I think both the same ही रहा होगा अभी भी, but so वो तीनों में हुआ like, तो eventually I had to make this decision of like किस मतलब, तो the Culcom seniors were like कि यार हम तुझे ले लेंगे, you just fill that as a choice. Similar thing was happening with FII and ENI as well. And I was someone जो पता नहीं मतलब मुझे क्या हुआ, like it something flipped on that night, and I joined this ENI club, and people were shocked कि यार मतलब क्या किया ये, like you had a great chance to like whatever to get into these companies. It's very important to get into cultural committee or FII, but you have ended up filling ENI. And I knew in my heart कि यार मतलब मैंने सही किया, मतलब मुझे जो अच्छा लग रहा था वो मैंने किया, because I really want to be associated with one of the clubs, which and I really want to work towards like making that club a big success eventually, when I leave the campus in 2 years. Which I kind of did. Like in my second year, I actually became the secretary of ANI, and like during my batch, right, like we ended up hosting a summit, which like back then it was one of the largest summits that happened in IMB. तो वो कुछ like 20-25,000 registration आए थे, like there was, and we kind of changed, एक Eximius करके एक faction summit होता था हमारा, where we used to call a lot of like speakers during that time. तो वो हमने second year कहते हैं became a big success.
Right, right. So what is the club apart from Summit? I know that IMB has this NSR entrepreneurship cell. Is that right?
And it's a cell, yeah.
Related to that, or is that completely separate?
So NSR Cell is actually a private company. Right? So वो मतलब बस वो incubation center housed है IMB में, but it has a different organizational structure, and it is like not run by the students. But the ENI club is associated with NSR Cell very very closely. So like जो most of the जो भी चीजें होते हैं, जैसे like if the NSR Cell has to interact with the batch, they end up doing it via the ENI club. उसके अलावा तो वो सब एक्टिविटीज तो है ही, मतलब जो भी entrepreneurship related, मतलब जो भी चीजें होती हैं during the campus, and there are a lot of things. जैसे during my time we also used to host this very Shark Tank like summit at the end of second year where people could come and pitch their ideas, and we used to have VCs coming in and kind of contemplating if they want to invest in those ideas PC. तो वो सब शुरू हो गया था. And during my time there was also a very big push to entrepreneurship in IIM Bangalore because एक तो हमारे दो courses आ गए थे entrepreneurship related. Like Professor Kumar was one of the deans who kind of pushed in having a very big influence of entrepreneurship in the campus. तो उनने ही like both of the courses were floated by him. Uh, and एक और चीज था, मतलब हमारे in whatever discourse that was happening back then, entrepreneurship was given a very big emphasis on the campus. And वो उसका मतलब ये नहीं था कि मतलब you have to necessarily start your own company, but the emphasis was around being part of the leadership like in one of the startups. तो उस पर बहुत बड़ा emphasis था. And that's why ENI Club like became one of the mainstays, one of the most important entities during my 2 years, because बहुत सारे चीजें हुई, like we used to host a lot of talks. uh, I remember like even Tribo ke founders the Siddharth, like he also came during one of our courses in strategy, and he told how his like whole journey was kind of shaped by what happened during his like IMB time. तो बहुत सारी चीजें हुई उसके बाद entrepreneurship related.
So tell me this, Love. You've been in entrepreneurship. First, you were surrounded by entrepreneurs at IIT Roorkee. You still didn't manage to do it. You wanted to get your management education. Management education कर लिया, वहाँ पे entrepreneurship club against the better counsel of other people you joined. But then at the end, you still went for like a banking job placements. Firstly, tell me
Yeah.
about your placements and also tell me how you managed to firstly crack JP Morgan and why did you choose that?
Yeah. वो भी एक थोड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी है मिक्स अगेन. एक तो मतलब this is something like lot of people who now like pass out of IIMs know. I think हमारे ना एक तो फीस like during my time was around 20-25 lakhs. पर यार I think वो थोड़ा भी increase भी हो गया है. तो like that's one of the reasons why even though like India में startup culture बहुत बड़ा हो गया है, but still people don't end up joining these startups because like they have to like pay off these huge loans like post their post their years like from passing out from one of the IIMs. तो मेरे साथ भी ऐसे ही था. Like I had that loan and I knew कि यार immediately तो startup में नहीं जाना है, but like if I want to one be a part of a big company, preferably either consulting or banking. Banking इतना नहीं था, like पहले तो मैं consulting ही सोच रहा था. And then like I knew that post that I'll see what happens, right? तो वो मुझे याद है कि वो पूरा जो 3 day प्लेसमेंट हमारा होता है, इट वॉज अ वेरी स्ट्रेसफुल टाइम अगेन. उससे पहले वो प्रॉपर शॉर्टलिस्ट निकलती हैं, एंड देन देर आर दीज यू आर असाइंड योर केस बडीज एंड यू हैव टू सॉल्व दीज केसेस विद देम. तो वो पूरा वो पीरियड शुरू हो गया था. आई हैड गॉटन कॉल्स फ्रॉम
When you say case
पेन.
buddies, are these people like IIM alumni in these MBB?
Oh yeah. I have to clarify that. Yeah. So these are like IIM alumni. Mostly IIMB alumni होते हैं, but like कुछ नई companies हैं, जैसे like during my time there was a company called LEK Consulting which was new, like which was visiting the campus for the first time. तो उसमें मतलब थोड़े different IIMs के alumni थे, like they were from IIMA. But mostly IIMB alumni होते हैं. And they first like I think mostly like they help you prepare for these interviews. Like they help you organize your thought process. They tell you about what will happen in like on that day, how will the interviews be conducted. But and I think we get two-way street timings. I think you get to interact with them to understand what will happen on in those interviews, and also the case buddies also kind of prepare their hot list, like so to say, because like they identify people whom they want to really kind of recruit in those
That's
three
what I
days.
thought. कि वो तो insider information लेने के लिए आए हैं, like double
Insider,
agents, right?
double agents होते हैं, exactly. तो वो मुझे बाद में पता चला इनफैक्ट, मतलब आई डिड नॉट नो बैक देन. बट वो मतलब कॉमन नॉलेज हो जाता है, लाइक वंस यू बिकम पार्ट ऑफ दैट होल सेटअप, राइट, देन यू गेट टू नो कि ये सब क्यों हो रहा है. तो इवेंचुअली मुझे समझ में आया कि यार वो सब हॉटलिस्ट वगैरह बनता है. सो ऑन माई डे -1 जब ये सब हो रहा था, लाइक आई वॉज पार्ट ऑफ, आई गॉट कॉल्स फ्रॉम बेन HUL was visiting on day zero in our batch for the first time. उससे पहले I think they used to visit on day one, but for some reason they also wanted to be part of that whole competition race with these consulting and banking firms on day zero. So I was on the hot list of HUL or day -1 पे. Like maybe I don't know if I have to reveal this, right, but हमारे time पे like there used to be a covert day -1 where a lot of banking firms used to come and take interviews before the D-Day, right? So मेरे टाइम पे JP Morgan was visiting us on day -1. मेरा मन थोड़ा सा था मतलब बेन और एचएल में ही बैठने का eventually, but I appeared for that interview. And this was the first time when the quant division was actually visiting us. And then I realized कि यार जब मैंने पूरा वो interview मतलब I was one of the few who got calls from that process. So I sat in the talk and then I eventually realized कि यार that is something जो काफी interesting है. Like एक तो I had taken a liking to all the finance courses on my campus. So in fact like I got good grades as well in all the finance courses. तो वो मेरा थोड़ा मन बन गया था कि यार मतलब एक बार फाइनेंस एंड बैंकिंग एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं. I was not averse to those things. तो मैं उनकी
How
talks
much,
में गया.
Love, how much role do your IIM grades play in your placements? Shortlist for day -1.
I don't think it plays a huge role, like honestly, because एक तो जब तक internship हो रहा होता है ना, I know for some like जो insider information है again कि जो toppers होते हैं उनका कहीं ना कहीं मतलब people all the case studies get to know कि यार ये सब थोड़े toppers हैं and they want to recruit them, but outside of that मतलब मुझे नहीं लगता कि बहुत ज्यादा influence play करता है. I think
So tell
more.
me, so you have 500 plus 600, nearly 600 people in your batch. Is it regular for people not in the top 100 or top 200, which is still good? 150 रैंक को रेगुलरली डे -1 में प्लेसमेंट होती है?
हाँ हाँ यार मिक्स आई थिंक मतलब इनफैक्ट मेरे टाइम पे आई न्यू अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल लाइक हु इवेंचुअली got calls and converted also like Bain and in fact Bain was notorious for this. मैं Bain में मुझे नहीं लगता कि बहुत टॉपर्स गए हैं. Even AT Carney for instance and HUL मतलब बहुत सारी कंपनीज में I know they were like very little emphasis on the education like whatever academically हो रहा था campus में, but they had a lot of emphasis on you as a personality. तो वो सारी कंपनीज के ना अपना एक कल्चर है and they probably want to make sure that they hire right as per their whatever culture they want to kind of have right eventually. तो उनने उस हिसाब से दे आइडेंटिफाई स्मार्ट एंड मतलब देखो मोस्ट ऑफ द लोग तो स्मार्ट ही हैं because I am Bangalore like during my time and I think that is something which is stuck with IMB culturally, right, is they look for these people who have always been academically very good. तो जैसे मैंने पहले बताया था right वो 10th 12th में कॉलेज में like they already hire for people who have been academically really good. तो एंड विद इन दैट मतलब मुझे लगता है कि उसके बाद जो जितने भी कंसल्टिंग फर्म्स जो विजिट करते हैं दे काइंड ऑफ लुक फॉर पर्सनालिटीज रादर देन academic achievements during the campus. This is during internship, by the way. I think finals तक I know for sure that there is some emphasis placed on academic like achievements as well in those 2 years. But I think तब तक तो they were like I know for instance there are a lot of people who eventually got very like below average grades also, but they are now working in BCG, Bain, etc.
Got it. So Love, you were in the entrepreneurship club, but I can understand 22 lakhs वापस pay करने हैं, so you wanted to do consulting. But how did you end up at JP Morgan? And did you
Yeah,
have a
yeah, no,
choice
exactly.
in that?
So वही था मतलब तो मैं वो डे -1 पे आई गॉट टू नो अबाउट दिस रोल. आई गॉट टू नो एंड आई गॉट टू नो द व्हाट दे विल बी पेइंग इवेंचुअली पोस्ट पासिंग आउट. तो वो सब का आई वाज लाइक दे काइंड ऑफ प्रेजेंटेड इट प्रीटी वेल एंड देन आई काइंड ऑफ वो मेरा ना मन उसी दिन फ्लिप हुआ इनफैक्ट डे -1 पे. आई वाज डे 0 पे आई वाज काइंड ऑफ वेरी प्रिपेयर्ड कि यार आई टुमारो आई विल अपीयर फॉर बेन HUL, but day -1 पे like the partner who was visiting us from that desk, he was also like very convincing, like in that sense. He was like, here, you are coming from an IIT, you can be a part of this setup, we are making this team, you will get privy to algo trading, quant, which is going to be the future. So I was completely sold, like on that day. तो मैंने जाके मतलब भर दिया like day 0 पे I got a flag from like a lot of my seniors who were next day who were looking forward for me to like appear for HUL and Bain. In fact, उस रात को I will not name that senior, but that one lady also called me and kind of threatened me कि यार आज के बाद we'll blacklist you. You will not be able to join this company and all. But I was not scared because I knew कि यार eventually तो matter नहीं करेगा. तो उस दिन मेरा flip हुआ and then I eventually joined JP Morgan. Day zero पे. It was more of a formality.
Do you think this blacklisting actually happens, or are these just tactics उस time पर and no one cares?
मुझे लगता है कि वो मतलब इवेंचुअली इट्स अ रेस टू गेट टैलेंट मिक्स तो अब वो ब्लैकलिस्ट क्यों मुझे नहीं लगता कि अब मुझे आई लाइक अदर्स वुड नो दिस बेटर राइट बट आई डोंट थिंक ये ब्लैकलिस्टिंग वगैरह कुछ होता है ऑनेस्टली बिकॉज नाउ इफ आई नो दैट इफ आई रियली वांट टू बी इन वन ऑफ दीस फर्म्स आई कैन गो लाइक ऐसा कुछ ब्लैकलिस्टिंग नहीं है
Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. So I'll ask a pointed question. Did the salary package have anything to do with your turning, your changing heart in on day -1?
Yeah. It was mixed. So, like, in fact, ये जो particular role था, I think this was one of the highest like stipends after मेरे batch में Blackstone भी था, but I was not shortlisted for that. Blackstone was paying a huge stipend actually in India, but जो ये ना, it was amongst like top three, like big
What does top
stipend जो
three mean
like
in Indian rupees? कि top three मतलब क्या? 1 crore, 50 lakhs? क्या
no
होता
no
है top three?
So मतलब मेरे बैच में it was eventually जो final offer था that was for 35 lakhs and there was a bonus on top of this which ranged from like up to 20% of bonus post this तो वो 35 to 40 हो गया था which like honestly like during that time like during the time that I was passing out it was a really good salary मतलब because most of the jobs that we used to get used to range between 20 to 25 back then, and this was like about 50% more than those jobs.
Right. So an MBB would typically offer at that time 5 years ago कितना? 25
25 max था मतलब all used to
for an
range
entry
between
level 25,
correct
and
correct
top jobs would be around 35, 40. That's pretty
yes
much the peak. So ये when we hear these headlines कि 1 crore salary मिली है इस IIM को, वो क्या होता है? Fake?
नहीं I think वो mostly I think वो international offers होते होंगे mix because like they were for instance
Got
like
it. So you're saying
100K
USD या पाउंड्स वाला कन्वर्ट करके रुपीस में तो ज्यादा लगता ही है, विदाउट कंसिडरिंग कि वहां पे
exactly
लिविंग कॉस्ट क्या होगा.
exactly I think मेरे टाइम पे वो मतलब दो तीन firms ही थे जैसे like Blackstone और Matrix like probably were the ones who were offering upwards of 50 lakhs
Okay.
but barring those firms I don't remember like many companies offering more than that.
Right. So 35 lakhs means कि एक साल में पूरा लोन gone, right?
हाँ एक साल में
Right.
मतलब वो टैक्सेस
हाँ,
थोड़ा
थोड़ा
ज्यादा होता
टैक्स
है
निकाल दो,
तो
ये निकाल दो, maybe a bit more.
हाँ बट आप 1 year में you can like easily pay off like 1.5 year max.
Right. So we coming back. So one year के बाद, why didn't you go on your entrepreneurial journey? अब तो लोन भी पे हो गया.
हाँ मतलब so
Hmm.
मतलब मेरा 1.5 year में कुछ हुआ था and eventually
Hmm.
like I left JP Morgan 2 years into
Okay.
that job.
So you actually
हाँ
left JP Morgan after 2 years.
I did. I
Hmm.
did like, but वो JP Morgan job was not that bad. Like, so, मतलब when I had joined that company, actually I kind of realized कि यार मतलब पहले ना मुझे ऐसा लगता था कि यार स्टार्टअप में कुछ अपना करेंगे और जॉब तो जॉब जैसा होता है राइट वहां पे जाके like you just have to do some tasks etc right but when I went post my MBA degree and Cisco का जॉब वैसे वैसे ही था like it was more very operational ऐसा कुछ ज्यादा दिमाग वगैरह लगाना नहीं पड़ता था but when I joined this job post my MBA, I kind of realized that yeah, matlab, I had a very big again mindset shift, right? Because then I realized कि यार job भी मतलब काफी बड़ा है. Like I kind of started admiring these big firms like JP Morgan, right? Which has been existing since the last like 130, 150 years. Like I kind of learned कि यार इतनी बड़ी कंपनी बनाना भी कोई like it's not a joke, right? Like and like a lot of people who are kind of working here they're doing quite well. I mean, they're doing a lot of innovative stuff as well. Because mere time pe, like our desk was actually one of the desks which kind of helped unwind a lot of problematic trades during COVID. And उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा मतलब innovative thinking गया था. I remember like we used to have very stressful times. वो proper हमने trade लिखे थे and like we kind of made sure that blow to the world was kind of blunt because of whatever happened during those times. Uh, and I started admiring like वो even मतलब मुझे पता लगा कि यार even team बनाना भी कोई छोटी बात नहीं है if there is like if there is a 20-30 member team within one of these companies and there's a person leading that right that person would know quite a lot about how to like kind of make a big company, वो सब चलाना कैसे है, like each team used to have its own distinct culture, a very different way of doing things. तो वो
And
फिर
your team,
मतलब
you joined the algo trading team, is that right?
yeah,
You were doing algo
I joined the
trading?
equity derivatives में algo trading, yes.
ओके, सो algo trading में व्हाई डू यू नीड टीम्स एंड पीपल? वो तो एक बार आपने लिखना है एल्गोरिथम और उसको थोड़ा बहुत ट्वीक करते रहना है, अपने आप बाकी करेगा।
हाँ हाँ, या यार एग्जैक्टली, तो मेरा एक्चुअली यही था, मतलब तो जेपी मॉर्गन में माय जॉब वाज अ वेरी आईसी जॉब, इंडिविजुअल कंट्रीब्यूशन वाले थे, बट टीम उस सेंस में था कि अब मतलब ट्रेडिंग इज नॉट अ, मतलब इवन दो इट सीम्स वेरी लाइक मैथमेटिकली ड्रिवन, बट ऐसा है नहीं, वो इन जनरल ना इट्स अ वेरी डिफरेंट सॉर्ट ऑफ जॉब, बिकॉज वो थोड़ा सा ना यू हैव टू लाइक व्हेन यू आर राइटिंग दीज ट्रेड्स यू हैव टू आल्सो मेक अ लॉट ऑफ स्पेकुलेशन, राइट, और वो स्पेकुलेशन बहुत ज्यादा आपके रिस्क एपेटाइट पे भी ड्रिवन होता है। जैसे आई इफ आई एम समवन हु लव टेकिंग रिस्क, राइट, तो मैं वैसे ही मतलब ट्रेड्स लिखूंगा। तो लाइक इवेंचुअली एंड वहां उन सब चीजों में योर टीम डज लाइक हेल्प अ लॉट, राइट, दे टेल यू लाइक हाउ मच रिस्क कैन यू कैन टेक, या फिर योर मैनेजर विल अश्योर यू कि यार ठीक है थोड़ा सा रिस्क ले लो, लाइक इट्स ओके, इफ यू गेट अ गुड लाइक अल्फा आउट ऑफ दिस, राइट, देन इट प्रॉब्ली विल बी अ वर्थवाइल थिंग टू डू। तो
सो
उस
डिड
सेंस
यू
में
हैव
द
योर ओन
टीम काइंड
बुक?
ऑफ,
वर यू रनिंग योर ओन बुक?
no, I was not like, so back then I was not. But अगर मैं रहता, like I think in my third year into the job, I might have been running it. But back then, like my manager was running it and I was supporting him in that.
Okay. Okay. So tell
Yeah.
us, how did that decision, apart from your loan being repaid, and why did you come out of JP Morgan, and how did that process go?
या तो यही था, मतलब तो अब वहां पे उस वक्त ना काफी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज अगेन हो रही थी, राइट, तो 2021 में एक तो देयर वाज अ वेरी वेरी बिग जॉब स्पर्ट हैपनिंग इन इंडिया, तो एंड लाइक आई
Was it
दैट्स
wasn't that 21, wasn't that the second wave COVID चल रहा था और कुछ पता ही नहीं था कि दुनिया में क्या
एग्जैक्टली,
होने वाला है?
तो वो दुनिया में तो वैसे चल रहा था, मैं यू राइट कि वो कोविड वगैरह चल रहा था एंड लाइक दे वर वेरी बैड टाइम्स एक्चुअली इन इंडिया, लेकिन लाइक ऑन द जॉब फ्रंट सरप्राइजिंगली जॉब फ्रंट पे चीजें बहुत नेक्स्ट मतलब लेवल जा रही थी, बिकॉज लाइक आई टेल यू सम कंपैरिजन, राइट, तो उस वक्त एक तो मतलब सैलरीज इन द जॉब्स, एक तो मतलब बहुत सारी जॉब्स थी मार्केट में, दे वर लाइक दिस इज बिफोर 2022 2021 2022 वाला टाइम में, so they were like so many companies that had excess capital and they wanted to recruit a lot of people, and there was a lot of global companies that were trying to hire in India, and that's where like this company called Revolut, right, they were also trying to like hire a lot of people in India. तो एक तो वो चल रहा था in the backdrop, and I kind of realized that एक इंडिविजुअल कंट्रीब्यूशन वाला जो रोल है ना, दैट इज नॉट फॉर मी, लाइक आई वांट टू बी अ पार्ट ऑफ लाइक अ सेटअप where eventually I'll be leading a small big team whatever, but and I'll be taking a lot of long term medium term decisions instead of thinking about day to day, right, which was my job back then. तो वो मुझे अपने बारे में चीज समझ में आया, तो then I realized कि यार वो स्टिक करके भी मैं क्या करूँ, like even though I was good at my job, but I kind of realized that यार मतलब if I'm not doing this 5 years hence, right? And if I keep on let's say if I'll be at this job for more than 3 years, then I'll be stuck here for sure, because उसके बाद वो सैलरी एक कैप हो जाता है, एंड बहुत सारी मतलब एक तो मतलब यू गेट ब्रांडेड विद इन दैट होल सेटअप, योर सैलरी बिकम्स अनमैचेबल, राइट, सो देन एक वो सैलरी वाला भी if even if you have to switch a job post that, then you might have to take a big salary cut, right, because you're starting from scratch in a very different job. तो वो सब मैंने डिसीजन वे किए अपने लिए, एंड दैट्स व्हेन आई काइंड ऑफ डिसाइडेड कि यार मतलब नाउ इज द राइट टाइम, वेयर एक तो लोन वगैरह भी जा चुका है and I probably can take a lot more risk in my life. And that's where I joined this company called Revolut from JP Morgan. Right.
So
So,
And was that
what
a
was
big
your
pay
job?
jump?
Was it anything to do with JP Morgan or very different?
so it was a very different job. Like वो मेरा JP Morgan में it was a trading job, and Revolut में this was a product job where I was leading a very small team of product managers, data scientists, and some like ops people, and we were trying to catch and prevent acquiring fraud cases via product solutions in Revolut. तो uh, जब इनिशियली मैंने जॉब की ज्वाइन करी वाली जॉब, आई वाज एक्चुअली पार्ट ऑफ दिस टीम, लाइक आई वाज नॉट लीडिंग दिस टीम, I was one of the strategy and operations manager. But 3 months and बैक देन मतलब रेवोल्यूट का एक जो सेटअप है ना वो बहुत ज्यादा प्रोबेशन ड्रिवन है तो यू आर गिवन दिस वन प्रोजेक्ट ड्यूरिंग योर प्रोबेशन लाइक ड्यूरिंग दोस 3 months and if you don't ace that like if you don't succeed in that KPI then they Revolut is also known to check people out and it was very notorious in that तो बहुत again मतलब when I was joining Revolut I read these Glassdoor comments I got in touch with a lot of ex Revolut people as well and ये एक ऐसी कंपनी है जिसके बारे में like people have very mixed feelings मतलब either people love it or people absolutely hate it and I kind of understood that ये probation वाला thing is one such setup why people hate it so much तो वो मुझे एक project मिला and
But
like the pro
I'm surprised, Love. You took such a huge risk. You're doing well. You're earning big money on your trading desk. This is
yeah.
like giving up, and that too for no surety. कि पता नहीं. I mean, you got a good project probably, but हो सकता है कुछ होता you wouldn't have been able to achieve. Would you have gone back then? Would they have taken you back?
No, so going back was not an option like so वो बहुत clear था like I knew कि अगर मैं ये छोड़ूंगा तो then I'm probably not getting back into this job but उस वक्त ना मतलब actually like if I think about it right मतलब मे even though it feels like a very risky decision but इतना risky था नहीं because like one my loan was paid off and because of my whole like family situation right I was never in a pressure of let's say making huge amount of money ever तो वो I think probably वो इतना risky decision नहीं था but I had a lot of faith on my abilities also like I knew कि यार ऐसा नहीं होगा कि I'll be on road right like मैं कुछ कुछ ना कुछ अच्छा तो figure out कर लूंगा and back then I was also in touch with a lot of my IIT Roorkee batchmates who had gone on to like do IIMs just like post their IIT degrees so they were like 2 3 years my seniors and I knew that all of them are doing well ऐसा नहीं है कि and like one job out of campus probably doesn't define you much because वो उसके आगे इतनी सारी opportunities है दुनिया में and especially because like during that time actually India में तो startup was just exploding that whole startup scene because one the companies had huge capitals इतनी सारी companies ने मतलब I know कि वो थोड़ा सा unpopular like sort of situation है जहाँ पे so many companies had raised huge amounts of money from different VCs and PEs तो वो इतना सारा capital था and hence there were so many jobs so वो सब मुझे पता ही था कि ऐसा कभी भी नहीं होगा कि यार I'll be on the road कहीं कुछ ना कुछ अच्छा हो ही जाएगा उसके बाद तो
So Revolut का जॉब कहाँ पे बेस्ड था?
Revolut was actually
Where was it based?
this was a remote job from India. So they were trying to set up an office. I was actually one of the top 5 hires of Revolut in India, and then उसके बाद they eventually opened an office in Bangalore and Mumbai.
But
So
you were working from home.
I was working from home. मैं घर पे था and I
And
was
did you get a big pay raise when you moved from JP Morgan to Revolut?
No, so बहुत big pay raise नहीं था Vix. So it was uh, for me it was a 10% raise over what I was earning in JP Morgan and that was also like I got to know कि Revolut को पता नहीं था कि इंडिया में कितनी salaries है. So they were probably like used to hiring people in the UK and they when they were they started hiring in India they probably thought कि यार यही salaries हैं. So like I think that was one of the reasons I still managed to get a 10% pay raise but I was prepared because one I wanted to leave the trading job. So I was even prepared if I had to take a pay cut, right? I was kind of willing to do that during that time because I knew here for me, if I really don't want to end up as a trader 5 years hence, then probably this is a time where I have to take this decision of if, let's say, if it comes to that, right? Take a pay cut and switch.
So what were you trading? Were you trading options? Were you trading stocks? क्या trade कर रहे थे?
Options.
And
So I was वो options का structuring कर रहा था Wix में. So I was taking multiple options to kind of hedge against either oil price shocks or different commodity price shocks.
मुझे तो ये बहुत ही सरप्राइजिंग लग रहा है इनफैक्ट बॉर्डरिंग ऑन शॉक कि HR पर्सन एट रेवोल्यूट और जो भी जिसने भी स्ट्रैटेजी बनाई दे आर ओपनिंग एन ऑफिस इन इंडिया और हायरिंग पीपल इन इंडिया यूजुअली पीपल डू दैट थिंकिंग कि यार मैं लंदन में इतनी सैलरी दे रहा हूँ इंडिया में कुछ तो कम होगा बट दे आर विलिंग टू ऑफर द सेम
Hmm.
मनी
No, they were
एंड
not offering the same price.
देन दे पिक अप लव सक्सेना कि यार ये ऑप्शंस ट्रेडिंग कर रहा है चलो इसको मैं रेवोल्यूट प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट कराता हूँ
नहीं एक्चुअली मैं आपको बताता हूँ वो भी बड़ा सरप्राइजिंग स्टोरी है वो तो रेवोल्यूट जब मतलब अपने टॉप फर्स्ट हायर्स कर रहा था ना मतलब मैं टॉप नहीं बोलूंगा फर्स्ट जब हायर्स इंडिया में कर रहा था So they didn't even have an HR person, like in India. So wo, like I was when I got in, and Revolut was reaching out to so many people on LinkedIn. Like I a very fun fact, right? Like मेरे batch में almost सबको reach out किया होगा Revolut ने, like during those like 2 years, 2021, 2023, like almost everyone would have done like at least one interview with Revolut. I'm very very sure about that. तो वो तो वो उनका टीम अच्छा था, like the team that was working out of the UK, it was a good HR team, but like, and they were not offering the same salaries as UK. Like obviously UK salary was, back then it was like close to 3x that of India. uh, but then because I was earning like X amount in JP Morgan, तो अब यूके को तो वो नहीं पता, मतलब for them, uh, Revolut when they were trying to hire, right, they were looking for people in the from a finance or a fintech background. So they were interviewing people from JP Morgan, these banks, or they were interviewing people from fintechs like Paytm, Razorpay, etc. तो एंड आई फील दैट फाइनेंस वाला तो उनके दिमाग में वो डिस्टिंक्शन नहीं था कि यार ये ट्रेडर है तो फिर we probably like don't have to like still like pay him X% above like what he's paying right now, right? For them it was like he's part of JP Morgan, that is like one of the target companies that we have, and if he's willing to come into this position, then we probably have to offer him like whatever X% above what he's making today. So then that's what they did.
So as a PM, what were your responsibilities day to day in Revolut?
So I joined in, like initially I joined as a strategy and operations manager, which is their like lexicon of calling a product. जैसे उसमें ना दो teams हैं Revolut में. Every team has two setups, one product and the other is services. So I joined product arm, and product arm में a strategy operations manager is essentially a product manager. So when I joined the team, initially I was given, like जो मैंने बताया कि एक 3 month probation period था, उसके उसमें I was given this one project and I had to hit that KPI. My team was trying to prevent authorized push payment frauds. तो वो fraud ऐसे होते हैं कि जैसे you own a bank account, so someone would first coerce you into sharing your username password and then eventually transfer all the money from your account to their like some other account and then transfer it out. So my team was trying to prevent such kind of frauds happening to Revolut people. I mean, people who are owning accounts in Revolut. So, and they were doing it via like 2 3 machine learning models, which was again very close to what the work kind of work that I was doing in JP, right? Because वहाँ पे भी मैं programming कर रहा था, यहाँ पे it was machine learning, which was very close actually. तो वो उनके पास 3 machine learning models थे, and उसके बाद एक पूरा process एक ops setup था, because that machine learning model used to catch these like it used to flag few accounts जो उनको suspicious लगते थे, and then eventually there used to be a whole ops process. They say if you are caught, then you'll have to produce something to kind of get out, or या तो Revolut आपका वो account बंद कर देता था. तो I was given one of the projects initially कि my job was to increase or improve the customer experience of people who are caught from this program, because they understood that this model is able to catch just 20% fraudsters, 80% तो वो अच्छे users को ही flag कर रहे हैं. So like my job was to kind of make sure that one, we increase, and this in our lexicon, right, this is called recall of a machine learning model. तो उसका recall 20% था. My job was to either increase recall or improve customer experience, right? तो वो मैंने उस वाले project में I kind of aced it. मतलब वो I found the bug in the one of their machine learning models and ended up improving their recall to about 40-45%. And उसकी वजह से like एक और during that like those 2 3 months, मेरा जो like the person who was leading that whole team, the product owner, he left. He quit the job. So I was uh, kind of given that because I had done so well during that whole probation period. So within 3 months, I was asked to lead that whole setup in Revolut. And वो मतलब by chance हुआ. Like even though I had joined as a strategy and operations manager, I eventually became and acted as a product owner 3 months into the job.
Wow.
Uh,
And did they give you a pay rise at that time?
no, they didn't. They didn't. They didn't. But they were like, "कि यार वो करो, like be
Hmm.
on it like for 3 months, and then we probably consider." Which happened.
This
So
was
फिर मैंने
2021, right?
this is
2021?
2021.
20, because I kind of remember, because Revolut, it's a UK company, तो थोड़ा सा track हम रख रहे थे. So this was the
Yeah.
time. I mean, it was way bigger than the deals that I do, but I do remember because it made a huge news. कुछ 800-900 million उन्होंने raise किया था.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
all those, the big pocket wale, ये Tiger and SoftBank, or one of
Exactly.
those or both of those must have funded it.
Yeah, yeah. या
Hmm.
या 100%. सो जब इनफैक्ट वो जो डील था वो तभी हुआ था जब व्हेन आई वाज इंटरव्यूइंग वो
Right,
हुआ
right.
तो आई जॉइंड इन जुलाई एंड दे हैड रेज्ड लाइक एट 30 बिलियन वैल्यूएशन पे दे हैड
Hmm.
रेज्ड अ ह्यूज राउंड एंड उसकी वजह से ही देयर वाज अ वेरी वेरी बिग पुश इनटू हायरिंग ग्लोबली नाउ बिकॉज एक तो वो यूएस और इंडिया में एक्सपैंड कर रहे थे ऑस्ट्रेलिया जापान उन्होंने ऑफिस सेटअप कर लिए थे एंड देयर
Yes.
वाज अ बिग पुश टू हायर टैलेंट अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड
Yes, yes. Yeah, no, that was the time that Revolut 2021 में people started noticing. क्योंकि उससे
या
पहले था कि ओके एक और है, ओपन बैंकिंग लाइसेंस लिया है, कुछ कर रहे हैं. There were like 20 such banks in the
या
UK. And then suddenly Revolut raised that 800, and it was like अच्छा हाँ, ये तो अब जाने वाला है, बड़ा होने वाला है.
या या
Good, good. So
100
so then
करेक्ट
you were there for what, 1 year, and then you moved again?
Yeah. So I was there for a year.
Hmm.
2022 तक मैं था. And that's when because they had made me the product owner of that product. They wanted me to shift either to Berlin or to UK. In like during that time. वो I think March 2022 की बात है. But back then I was about to get married. April May. And that's why and my wife, right, whom I met in my first job in JP Morgan. She had a very parallel like career and she was doing well in her job. तो like we eventually decided कि यार मैं इंडिया में जॉब देख लेता हूँ दूसरी because I like we did not want to shift to Berlin or to UK back then.
But
तो
your
वो
wife was
eventually
in
I left.
JP Morgan.
She was in JP Morgan, but back then वो JP Morgan से she had switched to a company called Circles. वो एक Singapore based telecom firm है. And they were also trying to open an office in India. तो
Both of you started with JP Morgan, दोनों ने साथ में छोड़ा.
yeah. दोनों इनफैक्ट लाइक फनी स्टोरी लाइक मई एक्चुअली मेरी वाइफ ने मुझे काफी पुश किया था लाइक शी वाज आल्सो पार्ट ऑफ द वन ऑफ द सिस्टर टीम्स एंड शी had made up her mind that she doesn't want to do it for the entirety of her life, right? So she switched first like in a seed say startup like एक deserve करके एक startup है. Now it's like pretty big, like they are funded by Matrix and all. तो अब तो बहुत बड़ा हो गया है, but she was one of their 15 hires. She took a very very big risk and that तो मैं सोचा कि यार ये तो बहुत ही बड़ा रिस्क है, मतलब मैं इतना छोटा सा रिस्क ले ही सकता हूँ. Like for me it's just like JP Morgan to Revolut, right, which is still a big company. So yeah, she eventually she was on a very different path back then. तो अभी तो फिर उसके बाद she joined Circles and then eventually like she was in the strategy team of Circles.
You were getting married and you didn't want to go out of India.
करेक्ट. सो आई वाज गेटिंग मैरिड. वो तो एंड उसी टाइम पे ना मतलब आई स्टार्टेड गेटिंग लाइक बिकॉज रेवोल्यूट वांटेड दिस टू बी वन ऑफ द मार्केट टीम्स. एक तो वो मतलब दे वर ट्राइंग टू गेट बैंकिंग लाइसेंस. तो बहुत बड़ा पुश था टू इम्प्रूव ऑल द फिन क्राइम compliances and products etc. तो इसके लिए they wanted me to shift to either Berlin or UK. तो वो मैंने मना किया and eventually I had to leave the job and then I joined this company called MagicPin in Gurgaon,
I
which
never
is
heard of it, but what do they do?
so
Are they
MagicPin
still
is
around? Firstly, are they still around? Because startup
they
world
are
में तो
there.
ऊपर नीचे होते रहता है.
Oh no, they are. मतलब वो it's a big company. In fact, they're doing quite well after ONDC वाला पूरा spurt. MagicPin is actually pre-COVID. It was supposed to be a discount company. Like for instance, let's say if you as a consumer you're stepping out and you are either shopping or doing anything commerce related outside, right? Then you make payments via MagicPin, you'll get points, and those points you can use to get discounts on your next purchase. Like for instance, if you want to buy a jeans from Levi's, you buy it, you get points. You then in your next transaction you get a huge discount. तो
So
वो
is it
पूरा आइडिया
something
था.
like a Groupon and those sort of companies, the
Yes,
coupon companies?
it's correct. It was very much like that. In fact, it was bigger than all the other players like back then. Groupon तो खत्म ही हो गया था उस वक्त. But even companies like Nearby and all that, उन सबसे बहुत बड़ा था Magic Pen pre-COVID. And especially in the young जो college and first job वाला community था ना उसमें MagicPin was pretty huge in fact, and like for instance I had used MagicPin before joining MagicPin, and a lot of my friends knew and had used MagicPin as a product, though I knew it was a popular product back then. Post COVID, they faced huge issues because of pura ek to offline retail business came to a halt, and they had to venture into food delivery, and that's when they became so food delivery काफी बड़ा हो गया. Like they created that whole arm in a month, and eventually right now it's the third largest like food delivery app in India.
Which are the top two then?
It's Zomato and Swiggy.
That's it. And then MagicPin
Yeah,
is number 3 right after these. But it must be a distant third. Is that right? क्योंकि नाम तो सिर्फ Swiggy और
it's
Zomato का ही आता है.
you're right. It's a distant third. उनका जो order volume is like close to 10x that of MagicPin. But अभी I think with ONDC अभी बहुत सारी apps आ गई हैं. Like in fact, PhonePe also had like their own offshoot called PinCode, which is doing pretty well. And then even Rapido is trying to venture into this business by using ONDC का पूरा seller network. And by the way, all the ONDC वाला network is being led by MagicPin. वो पूरा network MagicPin का ही है. All the sellers were onboarded by MagicPin, and MagicPin gets a share in every transaction that happens on ONDC.
ONDC is this thing around UPI that has been built in India, right? वो commission
It
free and all that. Open
वो
license.
parallel है. तो वो
Okay.
यूपीआई जैसे पेमेंट्स में है ओएनडीसी इज कॉमर्स वाला यूपीआई का पैरेलल so for
Right.
instance ONDC is trying to make a platform where all the sellers and buyers can kind of register transact on a zero commission model.
So what is the revenue model, Love? You've been at the center of this. I've always wanted to understand this sector. India में UPI है for payments and ONDC for all these things. Where do these intermediaries ever make money to even, because the global model is
Yeah,
you make money using the spread and the margin or whatever commissions.
right.
How does
So
that even
exactly
work
that.
as an ecosystem in India to be sustainable?
So जो जब ये शुरू हुआ था जैसे जोमेटो स्विगी एंड इवन मैजिक पेन मतलब तब तो मॉडल कमीशन ही था मिक्स एग्जैक्टली यही था दैट all these companies are trying to so these intermediaries are trying to part discovery for these different merchants, or they are also playing the acquisition game. तो एक प्लेटफॉर्म है जहाँ which is trying to acquire buyers, वो demand और sellers वो एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म पे आ गए, hence the transactions are happening, and for that these merchants are trying to pay a commission, right? यही पूरा ट्रेडिशनल मॉडल यही है आज की डेट में भी. जोमेटो स्विगी मोस्टली लाइक कमीशन बेस्ड मॉडल पे ही है, एंड ये कमीशन काफी ज्यादा होते हैं. लाइक फॉर इंस्टेंस स्मॉलर यू आर एज अ मर्चेंट, obviously like for competing against these big merchants and powering your discovery, right, you will be willing to pay higher commission, right, to these platforms. तो वो इस तरीके से चलता है, that's why you would see it even आज जोमेटो स्विगी इन सब प्लेटफॉर्म से बहुत सारे स्मॉलर मर्चेंट्स भी की डिस्कवरी बहुत ज्यादा स्टार्ट होती है because they are getting more commissions out of these merchants, right? तो अब ये जो जीरो कमीशन मॉडल है that ONDC is trying to get, even Rapido is playing that game now, is कि आप इन intermediaries को एक fixed fees दो every month. You give and as part of that like whole setup, you get n impressions on a monthly basis, and उससे आपका चलेगा, and then उसमें भी tiers हैं. So for instance, you can pay different subscription amounts, right? There's a gold, platinum, etc. These tiers within this. So let's say if you're part of the gold, it's very much like commission, but it's just that it's a fixed amount that you have to pay on a monthly basis. और एक बार आप पे करोगे, then you're guaranteed some impressions basis that. तो उस तरीके से पार हो रहा है ये सब. मतलब you have to pay money. ऐसा नहीं है zero commission means zero commission. You are paying something for getting that SaaS whole setup.
Right. So someone is paying, and yeah, there's no free
Right.
lunch in the world.
Yeah. There is no free lunch.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then
So
these
you were
products
there.
are
What
also.
you were there? Where was this based? Your MagicPin job? Bangalore or
This was in Gurgaon.
Gurgaon?
This was in Gurgaon.
And at this time, you were married, and your wife was also in Gurgaon.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
we both were in Gurgaon. So 2 years, I was in this job. I was again like leading their whole demand product, including acquisition and retention. So वो भी actually काफी enriching experience था for me, because I was a very young person, like just 2 years, 3 years out of campus. But this job was a proper, like it was a very senior role in fact. Like I was an AVP in the team, and I was directly reporting to the CEO of MagicPin, Anshu, who himself, like he was an ex-partner of Lightspeed, and for some reason he decided to open MagicPin posts like Lightspeed, right? Who I've been asking him, I used to ask him like, why did you do this, right? Like you were having a very, and he also had a very similar response that I was not getting a lot of satisfaction in that job, right? I wanted to do something of my own. So he has been a big inspiration for me, and I was working directly like with him. So even though मतलब मैंने plan वैसा नहीं किया था, but all the circumstances were such that I eventually, like I got a lot of understanding of how like these high level decisions are made, right? It was a crash course into like running a huge company like MagicPen. तो वो पूरा मैंने experience किया वो 2 years, and then I knew that I'm kind of ready now to take on like higher, like more challenging roles after that. तो मतलब ये मेरी पूरी job ना.
Why didn't you grow with MagicPin?
So MagicPin and Revolut, वो दोनों मेरे, both of them were product jobs. Like, and interestingly, I kind of understood कि if you are part of a product setup, right? So of course you're making a lot of impact into different things, right? But reality ये है कि एक किसी product chain से ना, your impact will always be capped by what the platform eventually is doing, right? What the business teams are doing. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say कि मतलब मैंने अपने user का retention 20% से बढ़ा दिया, but यार user तो 100 ही है platform पे, तो अब user को 100 से 500 करना is not my job, right? That some business team is doing, right? Like someone would say that let's run a 100% discount on Sunday, and immediately I'll get 1,000 people. But as a product guy, that decision is not in my hands, right? My work is limited by what the business team is kind of able to think. And this reality dawned on me as when I was part of Revolut and MagicPin. Because MagicPin I got to know कि यार business teams क्या कर रही हैं. And I thought कि यार मतलब मैं क्या impact make कर रहा हूँ. I'm just like just moving these metrics by 10-15%, like using these product changes. But the real meat, right? The real thought process, real decisions are being made when people are sitting on a table and taking these business decisions, big business decisions. तो वो मेरा दिमाग में बहुत क्लियर था कि यार प्रोडक्ट मतलब ये सब बहुत हो गया, like I want to move to a business role now.
Right.
And during this time, surprisingly, my so Kush वो भी मतलब अपना path follow करते हुए FMS से he joined
Oh,
he
so
had
your
joined a
brother
company.
also did MBA after his DTU.
Yeah. So my brother, like he joined FMS. उसका भी मतलब he also got a very good percentile in CAT. He was a 19.81 percentile. उसको call नहीं आया लेकिन IIM से because his academics were like pretty bad. His वो college percentage वगैरह 50%, 55% था. He had not studied quite a lot. So but because FMS was one of the campus that used to still weigh a lot on the CAT percentile back then. So he got an FMS call. He converted that, joined FMS, and उसने भी MBA कर लिया. Post MBA, he joined a company called ITC, and ITC में he luckily got a very good exposure into, because his team was one of those few teams जो एक metro city से operate करते थे लोग. He had a posting in Mumbai, which was big because ITC standards से, because people usually used to get tier 2, tier 3 का
Yeah.
cities में setup उनको मिलता था. And that's why they did not used to see huge volumes of business. But since Kush got a Mumbai posting just like 2-3 months into the job, he got a big exposure into how like these big decisions are made. So Kush ITC से होते हुए he was there like till 2022, and he had joined till 2021. And back then when I was taking that decision of leaving JP Morgan, he also decided to leave ITC, and he decided to join this company called Pocket FM. Now Pocket FM is like it's an audio series company which was not that big in 2021. Like they were still trying to do proof PMF in India, uh, and they were trying to set up a team for the US market. उस वक्त they had somehow they thought कि यार मतलब इंडिया के साथ साथ हम US market भी grow करेंगे, तो कुछ ने वो team join किया. It's an Indian It's an Indian startup founded in 2018. ऑडियो सीरीज मैं थोड़ा कॉन्सेप्ट बताता हूँ. मतलब ऑडियो सीरीज इज इट्स एक्चुअली नॉट अ म्यूजिक ऐप. इट्स बेसिकली जैसे ऑडियो बुक्स होते हैं जहाँ पे लेट्स से देयर इज अ नॉवल, देयर वुड बी लाइक एन ओरेटर हु वुड ओरेट दैट होल स्टोरी, and you can that's audible. No, so but it's not like audible. So अगर आप एक ऑडिटर एक बुक को पढ़ रहा है ना, that is what audible is. But then there is this whole category called audio series, which is beyond. It's like it's a whole experience. So you plug
Like
in.
radio dramatization.
Exactly. It's very close to radio dramatization, and that's what Pocket FM was trying to build. And
Hmm.
Pocket FM, like by this time, had understood that there's a huge market out there. मतलब जैसे ए- एक तो मतलब हमारा जो जनरेशन है ना, it's very
Hmm.
much we like to consume a lot of content even on the go, right? जैसे आज की डेट में भी let's say in my transit when I was like on my flight and then on my way, like whenever I go to office, right, I'm always listening to one or the other content, either reads के form में या किसी form में. तो
Hmm.
इस time पे like a company like Pocket FM uh, has a huge market because एक तो हर not every person wants to listen to music. In fact, what we realize अभी Pocket FM पे as like when we did our user research, right, we realized that only 10-15% people want to actually listen to music, and even they get bored from that whole thing like within a couple of hours. But if we realize मतलब दुनिया में जो mundane jobs तो बहुत सारे हैं, जैसे for instance if let's say if you're a cleaning lady in the US, right, then आपको यार कुछ तो चाहिए मतलब सुनने के लिए, right, else like you are always on the lookout of like people start keep on consuming one or the other thing, right? So there was a huge market out there, and it was a complete white space because there were no companies apart from Audible, and Audible na thoda sa content was more like something that people did not enjoy that much because अगर मैं सिर्फ एक बुक पढ़ रहा हूँ ना, इट्स नॉट दैट एंगेजिंग. तो इसलिए पॉकेट एफएम ने ज़्यादा स्पेस कैप्चर किया था. They had grown quite a lot between 2018 and 20, but it was still a small firm when Kush had joined it in 2021. Uh, and back then there were two such companies actually, Pocket FM और Kuku FM. तो ये स्पेस में कंपटीशन आ गया था, but it was very hard to like break out of that whole scale within this business, right? तो कुछ ने join किया, and then 2021 में Pocket FM also decided that यार इंडिया तो हम कर रहे हैं, but इंडिया में the problem will always be on revenue, subscription, uh, etc. Right? Like because there are not a lot of people who are willing to pay for the content. So they decided कि यार हम ना US में setup कर लेते हैं. Because there is a huge जनता, like एक तो product तो same ही है, need तो same ही है, तो why not do it in the like why not do in a geography which again has a huge population and who are willing to also pay for the content of it. तो उन्हें US team setup किया and Kush became part of that team. It was a small team back then. Or within a year of like joining that team, they expanded the US business from zero to about 100 million in just 6 months on the back of
100
uh,
million revenue.
100 million annual revenue. तो वो उन्हें फोड़ दिया मतलब वो 6 months में मतलब it broke out like became a huge business like back then, and
Right.
Kush was part of that whole like in fact Kush की category, Kush was part of the drama romance like category, and वो बहुत बड़ी category बन गई in the US. उसी it used to account for 90% of Pocket FM का overall revenue globally. तो उस टाइम पे they were trying to open a new category called fantasy. तो कुछ ने मुझे उस पर
So
contact
who
किया.
are these people who are reading these dramatized book? तो जैसे ये किताब है, so first of all, do you need permission from the author to read a dramatized version of it?
So Vix, we actually मतलब हम ना license कर लेते हैं. So there are a lot of user generated platforms that are existing in China, Korea and Japan. There's a huge market, billions of readership. तो हम क्या करते हैं वो story वहाँ पे ना stories की license ले लेते हैं, and then we kind of convert them and produce them and then make them live on the platform. और इसका जो usual demand है that is from again like I said, right, let's say if you are a cleaning lady, let's say you are someone who is sitting on in a shop, right, or you are someone you are a cab driver, तो आपको ना मतलब पूरे टाइम ना you are in this need of like consuming some or the other content, right? तो वो लोग generally बहुत consume करते हैं, they consume.
So ठीक है, so I understand where you get the content, but who is the person who is doing the dramatic reading of it?
Oh,
Is it someone
these
on
are
your
voiceover
platform or is
artists.
someone hired by Pocket?
So
But is there someone,
these are professional voice actors. So there's a
but are
huge.
they hired by Pocket FM
Yes.
or are they just freelancers?
So they are mostly like freelancers, but then because वो ऐसे ही यहाँ पे ना like LA में like where we hire most of our artists from, right? Like there's these actors usually because like the US से ना जो content create होता है, it is also distributed all around the world, right? So there's already a huge market of these freelancers. Like you will find people who are trying to voice act like from English to English or English to Japanese, Mandarin, different languages. वो पूरा मतलब बहुत बड़ा यहाँ पे already talent pool exist करता है. तो we usually freelance. Hire these freelancers.
And who do you compete with in the US? First of all, I didn't know of this category. It sounds pretty interesting. The need is real.
Yeah,
I thought people only listen to Audible and music, but I can understand कि
yeah,
Audible is very plain reading, but dramatized reading will be like almost like watching a movie, but not with my eyes, just with the
exactly.
words.
Yeah, yeah.
So who are you competing with in this market?
So like surprisingly, right now, audio space, but there is no competition as of now, like in the US mix, and that's the reason why we have grown so much. But like as ये जो पूरा space है ना, इसमें competition is actually from these micro drama apps like Reel Short, Drama Box. ये हम similar audience के लिए compete कर रहे हैं. They're also like competing for that audience.
But Love, I think you're competing with everyone. You're competing with Spotify, you're competing with Audible, you're
Exactly.
competing with, yeah, all these
Yeah.
podcast platforms,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
You're right.
finally it's
You're right.
content.
You're right.
All that is
Exactly.
content. And my question, therefore, now this is what I always think if I were funding as a VC, a startup like this, for me, is it a big enough market? And if it is, why can't Audible do it more easily? Why can't a Spotify do it more easily? All they need is just one segment. Jesse, now a lot of them have started the podcast thing separately. A lot of them, they keep having more verticals. So for them, it's an
Yeah.
easy win.
Yeah.
So is
No,
it that
that's a
there
very
isn't
good
a big
question.
enough market? But if there is, why can't they easily do it? And the question I always have is, people have this Uber for X and Uber for Y. अरे अगर इतना ही बड़ा है तो उबर खुद ही कर लेगा ना. मतलब कुत्तों के लिए अलग से टैक्सी ऐप थोड़ी ना खोलोगे. और लोगों ने खोली है एक्चुअली. Uber for
Yeah, yeah.
dogs and Uber for only this and Uber for only that. But Uber can also do it.
So that's a very good question, Mix. And in fact, मतलब Pocket FM like gets these questions quite a lot. कि यार मतलब इतना बड़ा market है तो सब लोग कर लेंगे. In fact, like that is happening now also. Like if you see, right, like मैं अभी last week ही check कर रहा था. India में there are like 70 micro drama apps now which are funded like by one or the other VC, right? But मतलब actually the problem with this content space and this like Pocket FM has realized in the last 2-3 years, the problem is always going to be content because
Yeah.
it's very hard for like us to kind of engage people on a certain content. Up like as a user, let's say today you have a choice of engaging with these different OTTs as well, right? But there's a reason why you choose Netflix. Like probably if let's say if you as a person are looking to watch Stranger Things, you're sold on that series, right? You're not sold on Netflix. You'll probably buy a Netflix subscription because you want to watch Stranger Things, not the other way around. Right? You wouldn't just like take the subscription and then wonder that चलो कुछ देख लेते हैं यहाँ पे. Same like similar is the case with Prime Video. Similar is the case with like hundreds of OTTs that are out there, right? So what we realized that like देखो at the end of day, it's about content, and that's the complexity of this whole business because it's very hard
Now,
to like
देखो, I'm looking at
first
Pocket
met,
FM
he
right
was
now.
confident and charming.
So I'm watching this
I don't know
episode.
what
So इसमें
happened,
तो
but
actually there's
I just feel like if I
this looks
stay
like
with him
professionally
long
produced
enough,
content.
he might actually
Yeah.
And it's
find
like
himself.
a series, a
I
TV
really
series,
love the man
and
that
it's not only
used to
audio. मैंने मुझे आँख भी देनी
but
पड़ेगी मेरी.
do you love
And
the
I have to
guy he
engage my
is
visual
right now?
perception also.
No, Mix, ये हमारा innovation है. तो
I just feel
हमने
like
if you like now, let's say if you start 30th or 40th episode, right, you'll find that this whole content progresses from this whole video to an audio series. तो मैं पूरा explain करता हूँ मतलब क्या है exactly, right? I was like trying to explain the whole blockbuster model. तो मतलब eventually what we realized कि यार एक तो content king है and वही complexity है, right? Like it's very hard for us to uncover very engaging content and then also tell the users कि यार ये मेरे पास story है and आके सुन लो. तो वी फिगर्ड आउट कि यार ये जो पूरा इंजन है ना ये परफॉर्मेंस मार्केटिंग से होगा क्रैक. Like for instance, like let's say if I have a great series, I make a whole pilot episode of it. I distribute that on Meta, YouTube, etc. And then users who engage with this content, they'll probably install the app, and because they want to listen to more of that story, they'll start listening to it and consume it, right? Eventually. तो ये हमने figure out किया. But then what we realized was कि जब हम audio format हम जब distribute कर रहे हैं Meta पे, तो people were not engaging with it, right? Because then we were competing against these reels, against people who are like trying podcasts, etc., right? तो ये लोग वो मतलब ऑडियो थोड़ी ना कंज्यूम करेंगे, एंड वो ऐसा कैटेगरी एग्जिस्ट भी नहीं करता, राइट? नॉट अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल नो दैट ऑडियो में भी ये सब कंटेंट होता है. तो फिर हमने सोचा कि यार अब ना ये डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने के लिए ना वी प्रॉब्ली हैव टू शूट लाइव एक्शन. हम प्रॉपर लाइव एक्शन शूट करेंगे, उसको मेटा पे हम चलाएंगे और उसके थ्रू हम यूजर्स को ऑडियो सीरीज पे लेकर आएंगे. एंड इट्स अ नट्स आइडिया, राइट? लाइक नो वन वुड एवर थिंक ऑफ इट कि यार लाइव एक्शन से ऑडियो पे क्यों लेके आओगे. पीपल ऑलवेज यूज्ड टू क्वेश्चन दिस, बट ये सब काम ना कुछ नहीं किया. सो व्हाट वी रियलाइज कि यार ठीक है 5 मिनट लाइव एक्शन बनाओगे तो यू विल प्रॉब्ली सी अ लॉट ऑफ ड्रॉप ऑफ्स हैपनिंग इन द ऐप. बट अगर आप 30 मिनट्स का लाइव एक्शन बनाओगे and you end that story at a great cliffhanger, like at a cliffhanger which makes you desperate to like kind of know कि यार next क्या हो रहा है story में, then the user will 100% install the app and then they'll consume more of that story because now they're sold.
But then you've become a media production company, which is a great business.
Yeah, you're
It's
right.
not a tech company anymore. It's a media production company.
It's a media production company. It was a media production company till we were shooting live actions, but वही चीज हमने आके चेंज किया जब when I joined Pocket FM last year. I gave a huge push to this whole Gen AI content. तो आज की डेट में 95% of our production happens on using Gen AI. So even though it's very close to media production, but it's again made using these different Gen AI tools. उसके
So
through.
that's great. Man, Hollywood will be using Gen AI to make movies 5 years out.
You're right.
You're using Gen AI to make movies now. So you're using Google models and all that.
Correct.
So ये content जो मैं देख रहा हूँ, this is a Gen AI content.
No, this is live action. This is an old content, but if you go and start this series called My Vampire System, right? That is using Gen AI. वो पूरा Gen AI से बनाया हमने.
So Love, as a consumer, as a
cloud do
customer,
you use?
मैं
Which
एक
cloud do
कस्टमर
you
हूँ.
use?
मैं रोज सिर्फ ये ड्रामेटाइज वर्जन तो नहीं सुनूंगा. मुझे किसी दिन म्यूजिक सुनना है, किसी दिन मुझे पॉडकास्ट सुनना है, किसी दिन मेरे को कुछ और सुनना है. And that is why,
Right.
see, this is the difference. If I take the video analogy, why people
Right.
take a Netflix or a Prime, and why even Disney Plus had a fall off, because it was, and then they had to expand it to with other things. On one hand, there is a market for Crunchyroll. There are people जिनको सिर्फ anime देखना है, Crunchyroll subscription ले लेंगे. But by and large, the market is you keep changing. Sometimes you want to watch music, sometimes you do something else, listening me. And if I were to extend that, I feel this might sound a bit harsh. I don't see a long-term play being in this niche, and
No, you're right.
therefore, I will stick my neck out and say कि तुम्हारे जो VCs हैं, तुमने लाइट स्पीड या जहां से भी पैसा उठाया है, उनका एग्जिट ऑप्शन है कि ये ऑडिबल या स्पॉटिफाई या कोई ना कोई आपको एक वर्टिकल की तरह खरीदेगा once you've carved out that niche. It's not like a sustainable independent play.
That's a good question, Max. See, देखो, मैं ना वो analogy दोबारा लेता हूँ, ठीक है? जैसे let's say you start watching this Stranger Things or a series, ठीक है? अब आपने let's say आपने 6 episodes देख लिए. Now, like as a user, like you probably would end up binging that whole series over a weekend, right? आप तो पूरे 3-4 सीजन जो भी आया, आप 3-4 दिन में इतना ज्यादा वो engaging है, इतना अच्छा है वो, like it's so good that you'll end up watching that whole series 3-4 days में. But like now that series is just 2 hours production, right? वो आपने 3-4 दिन में देख लिया. हमारे में जो ऑडियो सीरीज है, these are 200-300 hours long, 350 hours भी हैं. So now, like as a user, if I engage you and I hook you on my content, then आपको तो यार 6 months लगेगा कम से कम उसको binge watch करने में. Like even if you are like crazily binging, let's say 3 hours a day, तो भी आपको ना 100-120 days लगना है to binge watch that whole thing. Right? Now तब तक तो it will end up becoming a habit sort of. मतलब आप अगर 100-150 days तक आप continuously कुछ कर रहे हो, तो वो तो habit बन चुका है. Now you want that. It's a drug
That's
for
what
you.
That's why I compared it with Crunchyroll, because when you see anime, वो thousand episodes चलते रहता है One Piece,
Right.
never ending,
Right.
20 साल से चल रहा है.
Right. Right.
So there is that. But
Crunchyroll का भी ना,
I'm
if you
just saying
realize that
that ठीक है,
Crunchyroll,
there is a market for it. I'm not saying there isn't, but I'm saying that this seems to be that your long play is basically, and this is not a bad outcome if you are able to sell
yeah.
it. Well, they will pay you big money. I'm sure you've got good stock options and whatnot in equity.
No, you're right. You're right. Makes, but लेकिन हम उसको eventually ऐसे देखते हैं. See, it's for us. It's like कि if let's say we keep on churning out these blockbusters at a regular interval, right? तो वो user का देखो need तो है. वो need किसी कोई ना कोई तो fulfill करेगा. Like and like this is such a business which Spotify, Audible सबने करके देख लिया. But ये जो पूरा engine है ना performance marketing वाला, this is a very contextually driven engine. जैसे we have taken 2-3 years to hone this engine. And right now it is giving dividends to us. But right now, as of last month, we are already a 300 million ARR plus company. तो वो हमने figure out कर लिया, and hence we are farthest in the race right now. And अभी मतलब right now the game is कि you keep on churning out these blockbusters, ये need आप देते रहो, and people will keep on latching onto this content. So we
this
see this
300
as
million ARR, is it coming from subscriptions?
this is coming from subscriptions.
नहीं, मैंने कितना डॉलर चार्ज करते हैं पर मंथ?
So subscription, तो ये ना actually micro payments है. So let's say if you are a user, then you have to pay for all the content that you're consuming. For instance, if you end up consuming 100 episodes, तो आप उसका कुछ pay करोगे. Per episode, you end up paying something like 50 cents in the US.
Okay, very good, very good. No, this is I find it very interesting, and I think you can carve out a role for yourself because media content is huge, and I'm very interested in using Gen AI to generate these
Yeah.
movies. Mane, so are you using? Did you develop an in-house talent to do it, or उसको
Yeah.
outsource किया किसी दूसरे
Yeah,
company
yeah,
को?
exactly.
What have you done?
No, so we realized कि Vex कि ये ना पूरा जो engine है, I think it will only work if let's say we again मतलब this is a classic buy versus outsource kind of decision. Sorry, outsource versus like make kind of decision, right? So for us it was, since this is at the heart of what we are doing, तो Gen AI तो हमने पूरा in-house ही nurture किया है. Like in fact we started doing Gen AI sometime last year, जब ज़्यादा tools भी exist नहीं करते थे. Like they were hardly mid-journey.
So talk to me a bit about the infrastructure. What cloud do you use? How big is the team, and so on?
So it's a huge team. Like we have a team of about 300 people who are like producing this content. This is only for US. Like I am part of the US geography. There are bigger teams in other geographies as well, India, Europe.
So there's a 300 people team located out of India using Gen AI to develop this content.
Correct.
And these are and this team is made up of graphic artists and so on who create the initial sketches and then feed it to Gen AI to
Exactly.
develop the subsequent
Yes.
frames.
Right. So
And they're all located out of Bangalore.
So, there's actually these are two set of people. So there is a smaller, about a 50-member team located in the US who are writing for this content, like which will be produced, and then there's a 250-member team who are located like in different parts of India, mostly say remote roles, who are using these different tools to generate content, basis like the script which is generated in the US.
Okay. And what cloud are you using? What model are you using?
So we use many models, like अभी mostly Midjourney, VO3, Google का VO3 use कर रहे हैं, and we end up using some like Runway as well to do some tasks, but mostly it's like we are trying to pivot towards Google VO3.
And who's the cloud provider? Google?
Oh, so we have Amazon AWS subscription right now.
So this talent itself is very valuable. Forget about
Yeah,
anything
100%.
else. But the fact that you can use Gen AI to create content is valuable. So what's the thinking behind locking the content only to your app and not distributing the content over, say, YouTube or Facebook?
Yeah. No, we are doing that as well. Because I think like what we have realized is that if you kind of acquire users on the platform, right, then you can distribute more content to them. So that's the whole like thought process around why we want to acquire users on an app. Because YouTube, again, you're competing for every user's attention, you have to pay. But if you have a user on the app who is engaged, who is retained, then you probably like they will keep on paying, right? You don't have to activate them again and again. तो वो पूरा थॉट प्रोसेस है यहाँ पे. And
So basically, your challenge becomes if you and your team can come up with one Stranger Things kind of a
exactly,
drama,
yes,
then like everybody on Facebook is saying, "Yeah, मैंने वो episode देखा है, बहुत अच्छा है." Then somebody else watches somebody else, and then
100%.
that's how you suddenly have
That's
a
the model.
million extra users.
That's the model.
That's the
That's
model.
yes,
So then the key challenge is creating great quality content, both
100%.
in first in text format and then
Right.
using Gen AI to convert it
तो
into
वही
a.
है. I think this is the biggest challenge of the content industry. Like you have to constantly keep on churning these blockbusters, and वही problem हम ना अभी solve करने का try कर रहे हैं Pocket FM में. The great thing about like our team right now is कि we are not folks coming from entertainment industry. Like what we have realized, ये थोड़ा सा controversial भी हो सकता है. Like I am saying this, but to people who are like coming from that industry ना, उनका बहुत बड़ा baggage है. Like around they have like certain views about कि यार इस तरीके से content होना चाहिए, इस तरीके से source होना चाहिए. But we are approaching things from a very first principles basis, right? Like for instance, I like some content, and then I'll try to like probably produce it on my platform, and I'll always inform myself using some of the other objective metrics, right? I will not be driven like from a lot of like subjective point of view, and that's kind of something that separates Pocket FM from other entertainment companies, right? Because हमारे में people who are taking these key decisions, right? Most of us are non-entertainment folks, like who are just solving this using first principles.
It's very interesting. And are you guys cash flow positive? And how much funding has been raised?
I'm sorry,
Are you guys cash flow? Yeah. Are you guys cash flow positive? And how much funding has been raised?
I don't know if I can disclose that. But yeah, I think as of last like round, we are a 700 million valuation company, and we have raised like close to 100 million funds.
And most of it from Indian VCs or American VCs?
No, we have like Lightspeed is our biggest like backer, and we have many funds like across India, US, uh, other countries.
So, Love, now you're based in Los Angeles, is that right? Or are you?
I'm in the
And how
process
does
of
that work?
transitioning.
Because your biggest reason for not being with Revolut was to stay in India.
Funnily, yes, Mix. See, I'll tell you, like again, like lot of things that have like shaped me, right? वो जब JP Morgan Revolut में मैं था, like I kind of realized that a lot of these companies have their back offices in India, right? Like a lot of these companies, like they want to hire people purely because they get talent at a cheaper rate, right? Which is something like a thought process which I mean, which just stuck with me. Like I kind of never subscribed to that like viewpoint. Like I was more like here, India mein there is like better talent out there, and that's why you should hire from India, right? Not because you get cheaper talent. तो वो मेरा थोड़ा मतलब thought process ना वैसा था. So I always like after my experience with these companies, फिर मतलब and because Kush was making this huge strides in Pocket FM US, तो वहां से ना कहीं I kind of realized कि यार Pocket FM is one company which is probably going to make it very big in the on a global stage, and probably one of the few, right? Like ऐसे बहुत companies नहीं है from India who are going to make like very big strides on a global stage. So Pocket FM वो था, and that is one of the reasons why I kind of decided to be a part of this journey, because I saw like for the first time in my life, right, a company जो ना यार मतलब वर्ल्ड को दिखाने वाली है कि यार ये इस तरीके से होता है, and that will come out of India, and that was a big like thing for me back then. तो अभी मतलब we have set up an office in Los Angeles. I'm in the process of transitioning. We have a huge team in LA. Like we have a team of about 100 creators in LA, and we probably hire 300, 400 more. We'll hire more business people in the US, but like it's one thing that we all kind of share, like all the Pocket FM leadership, is that we are very proud of like coming out of India, because entertainment industry mein again like China is known, Korea is known, right? But India say we are probably one of the first few. We
So
have a
how is
lot of
LA?
depth.
Love, how is LA? I've never been to LA, but is it like, are you in Hollywood or is there more to LA than just Hollywood?
No, there's definitely more than Hollywood. LA is actually quite beautiful. It's very close to Bangalore in
Disneyland
terms
and
of weather.
Hollywood, right? Disneyland है और
Yeah,
Hollywood
yeah,
है.
yeah. डिज्नीलैंड हॉलीवुड है, बट इसके अलावा और भी बहुत कुछ है मैं यहाँ पे ना, मतलब एलए की लाइफ मतलब बहुत ज्यादा बैंगलोर के क्लोज है. लाइक द वेदर इज वेरी मच लाइक बैंगलोर. वो थोड़ी ठंडी ठंडी हवा चलती रहती है पूरे दिन. इट्स नॉट एज कोल्ड एज अदर सिटीज इन द यूएस. तो उस सेंस में मतलब बहुत ज्यादा प्लेजेंट रहता है पूरे टाइम. Uh, and there's a very vibrant community of creators, like because this is the city which houses most like Hollywood, Netflix का भी headquarter यहाँ पर है, TikTok का headquarter यहाँ पर है. Hence, like there is, it houses a lot of creator talent. तो वो आपको ना रोड्स पे दिखता है जैसे लाइक आई डोंट नो लाइक if the viewers would have been to Berlin, right, they could see very colorful like buildings, etc., graffitis. तो वो LA में ना बहुत similar है. Like you would find very like colorful communities out here, and this is a city which is full of immigrants. Like यहाँ पे there are people like very big community from Tokyo, very big community from Korea, in very big community from India, like creators who are trying to make a life out of themselves, and hence it's very vibrant because it is a culmination of a lot of different cultures.
Hmm. Very nice. And how's the you said weather? How's the food there? Very Mexican
Food
type
is,
or
yeah, it's like since it is very close to the Mexican border, तो Mexican influence definitely बहुत ज़्यादा है. But again, मतलब यहाँ पे सारा food है, मतलब Mexican, Asian बहुत ज़्यादा है. Indian बहुत अच्छा नहीं है,
Hmm.
unfortunately. Like I have not had good Indian food till now here. But Asian, Thai, Mexican, even Italian food, like ये सब बहुत अच्छा है. And even American food यहाँ पे, like there are some very old diners, वो एकदम traditional American diners जहाँ पे वो थोड़ा सा अंधेरा सा environment होता है, people smoke and all, right?
So, Love, your wife has moved to LA with you?
Not right now. We are in the process of transitioning. Like, so I think probably in a month or two, she will also shift to LA.
And where are the founders located? The three founders, Rohan, Nayak, and Nishant and Pratik, they are in India or they're in LA?
So they are right now in India, but I think the plan is, I think pehle to me, Kush, Lalit, like we are the leadership team of the US. So we are in the process of transitioning here. वो हम लोग probably by September, October this year, we'll shift completely to like and start working from the US office. And the plan is that next year, probably they'll also kind of shift.
It's so good to see because we don't have Flipkart and Ola trying to compete in the US market. It's so good to see an Indian startup going to make it in the US market, and the
It is a
need is
hope.
real and the competition is real. Both are real.
Yeah, yeah. That is a hope fix. I think the hope is that like I think we are here to stay, right? Like, and that's the reason we are shifting to the US, right? Because we kind of realized that यहाँ से uh, we are onto something
Because see,
big.
what ended up happening was that Netflix ended up becoming a content producer, right? आज जो K-pop की इसकी जो movie आई, it got so
Yeah,
many, it drove a lot of subscriptions to Netflix.
yeah,
Amazon ended up becoming a content producer. Apple ended up becoming a content producer. So you are literally a content producer now with
yeah,
your own platform. So the challenge is, can you have some content which just captures the imagination? For example, इंडिया में भीम और ये सब जो कॉमिक बुक पढ़ते थे हम बचपन में, if one of them, जैसे K-pop became huge, right? No, I don't think Koreans expected K-pop to have universal desire to be watched. Similarly, there is content from India that the world might desire to watch, and if that
yeah,
becomes international, then this platform becomes huge. But the challenge is creating great quality content. I think that's
yeah.
what
I
is.
still remember
You're right.
in the 90s on Vivid Bharati, there used to be dramatized stories that used to come in the afternoon on the weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So I
so you're
think मतलब
basically
there's definitely
refiguring that, repurposing it because now it's the audio generation. Videos, I don't
And I
know.
think, and I think, and I think, just as a suggestion, one thing you guys need to do is to go out and talk more and do podcasts like this, because this is two of us hearing about it, and probably 10, 20,000 people will hear from this podcast. Because I didn't know about because the name almost seems like it's going to be radio stations delivered to me on my phone. It doesn't come across that this is dramatized audio content
you're right.
where I don't have to use my eyes.
I think मतलब अभी तक what we and I think we are in the process of doing it, right? Like अभी देखो 2018 में ही the company was created. Like it's just been what 6 years right now. So
Yes.
I think like in the next couple of years, and I think with this, what is happening now, right? 2025 से लेके 2027 तक, there's gonna be a huge push on the branding side. अभी तक हमने जो acquisition किया है, it's like it has happened mostly in the tier two like setup in India, and we are also trying to acquire like very similar like audience in the US. तो हमारा मतलब जो awareness है ना in that segment is huge, and that is also a very like big segment in both these countries. तो आई थिंक अभी जो लाइक टीयर वन सेगमेंट्स हैं तो आई थिंक दैट विल बी वो आई थिंक मोस्टली ब्रांडिंग से सॉल्व होगा इज व्हाट वी आर अवेयर. off, and I think that is something which is on the cards. Like, so because we have recently hired like a very senior person who will be managing branding for us, and I think usi mein pura push hai. Like we'll be doing a lot of this awareness like sort of drives now. Abhi tak performance.
But how do you work against the name? Because the name is important, and because that's my first impression. When I hear Pocket FM, I think it's like FM, the radio FM in my pocket. That's what
Has
I
been
think.
rebranded now by Civics. It's now it is called Pocket Entertainment, uh, which is
Okay.
like saying ki entertainment you're carrying in your pocket, right? Like because you can.
Pocket entertainment is much better, but अगर app is still called Pocket FM, जब मैंने डाउनलोड किया मैंने
No name,
and again that's just a feedback. Look,
right?
I'm very impressed with what you guys are doing, and I I won't be surprised if 5 years down the line this is a $10 billion company, and I think I'm just giving just feedback that I
Got it,
feel
got
like
it.
one ki agar if you can make the pocket entertainment idea more evident to me right away,
Understood.
starting by the name itself, and the second is just appear on more podcasts. You, your brother, the founders, because I think the world needs to know about it
Yeah, yeah.
more. Because
And like I constantly get this feedback, in fact, right? So I think this is something like I know that even Rohan, everyone is aware of that we have to like make our presence felt like even more than what is happening right now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I think we crossed 2 hours, which we usually don't do. So you're a very interesting guest, and I think we should call it a day now. Let Rohan know that he's welcome to come to IIM Baad podcast and we can learn him about his business idea.
Sure,
And I think that will get him some audience. And I'll be watching out for you guys. I think I'm very happy to see what you guys are doing.
sure, sure. Thanks. That's been a pleasure. I did not even realize that we have crossed 2 hours. In fact,
We
like,
did.
yeah. Thanks a lot for calling me. But I'll yeah, I'll let Rohan everyone know.
So
Good stuff.
thanks.
And
Thanks.
thank you, Love. Good luck to you, Kush. Good luck for your moves, and obviously good luck for Pocket FM and whatever else you do in the future. And thank you so much for your time on our show.